An adventure unlike any other.
When a rabbit hero and a gentle fox become parents by accident.
Hello everyone, welcome to What If Belle and Harhime Accidentally Adopted a Baby movie. Before we start, please go support tenma-sama for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Belle is a male. A few days after the defeat of the Ishtar family, Cranel was walking through the streets of Orario with Harhime after doing the pantry, and by chance both young people heard crying. The babies cry. What will the future hold for both young people? What will happen to Ace, Belle, and Harhime? Will Belle continue to love Ace? Or will his feelings change? And most importantly, how do you take care of a baby? The meeting, 01. Cranel, level 3 adventurer of the Hija family, an adventurer known by everyone in Orario and holder of the record for the fastest level up, having level 2 in a month and a half and level 3 in a month. He was running through the streets of Orario with 2 bags with fruits and food. The reason why he was running. It was raining very hard. At this rate I would catch a serious cold, but that's not all. Hunt. Beside him was Harhime Sanjano, a Renard girl with blonde hair and beautiful green eyes as bright as emerald. She was wearing a maid outfit and also had a bag with some cooking products. Her fluffy blonde tail with a white tip was soaked. Her fox ears were a little wet, while drops of water ran down her face as well as Belle's. The Hija family had run out of food supplies and it was their turn to go buy groceries, but they didn't expect that out of nowhere a heavy rain would hit them and they would end up running towards the fireplace mansion to take shelter from the cold and not catch a cold. Are you okay, Harhime-san? Worried. Harhime. You don't need to worry about my beautiful Sama, smiling, it's just a little sneeze. Harhime couldn't finish when a brown jacket was already over her head, covering it as best as it could. I wouldn't want you to catch a cold, protect yourself from the rain with this, Welf made it waterproof, smiling. Harhime blushed and looked at the ground in embarrassment, but due to a small mistake, she tripped over a stone and fell to the ground, dropping the bag in her hands. Harhime-san. Worried. Harhime slowly stood up and lowered her head in front of Belle. Harhime. I'm sorry Belle-sama, I'm useless, sad, the shopping is. Harhime's ears drooped in sadness, while her wet tail also twitched in embarrassment. Belle. Don't worry about it, helping her stand, you are more important to me, smiling kindly. Harhime looked at Belle with excitement in her eyes before realizing this and blushing like a tomato, while her wet tail moved slightly happily. Belle also realized her words and blushed, lowering her head. They both stayed there for a few seconds before Belle reacted. Let's pick up the groceries, nervous. Harhime nodded, still with a small blush on her cheeks, and began to pick up the purchases with Belle's help, but while they were picking them up, they both could hear a small noise. What is that? Curious. Belle had a curious face, not knowing what that noise was, but Harhime easily guessed it, thanks to her sharp beast-man hearing. Harhime. It's the cry of a baby, in shock. Belle. Surprised, where is it? Serious. Harhime and Belle left the bags with the pantry on the floor and began to run with Harhime guiding Belle towards the crying. Every time they got closer, Belle could hear the crying louder and louder until she could see a box at the end of an alley being barely covered with a blue cloth that protected it from the rain. Belle and Harhime approached quickly until a small Renard tail could be seen through the box. Belle carefully removed the cloth, looking in surprise at a little girl no more than 1 or 2 months old, with bright blonde hair just like Harhime's, with the tip of her tail as white as snow, and charming ruby eyes like Belle's. What a coincidence, right? The little girl was wrapped in a white blanket that barely kept her warm. Belle. A small Renard, surprised. Harhime instantly took off Belle's jacket and put it on the baby, covering her with it. Harhime. Harhime hi, looking at Belle, we won't leave her right? Looking hopefully at Belle. I would never do that, carrying the little girl, I don't know who left her here, but if we leave her too, she could get sick or end up with bad people, looking at the little girl. The baby stopped crying and looked at Belle and Harhime with those beautiful eyes before laughing and reaching out her hand to them. Nah, do you think Kami-sama will get angry if I take her home? Harhime. I don't think so, smiling. Belle looked at the little girl before covering her with his body and starting to walk in the rain, being followed by Harhime. Aren't you cold? Looking at Harhime. And don't worry about me, she is more important now, smiling. Belle blushed at Harhime's smile and coughed lightly. Then let's go to the fireplace mansion. Blushing. The little Renard smiled at Belle's funny expression, which made both young people look at her before smiling, Harhime with a beautiful smile, and Belle with a somewhat shy and embarrassed one. Let's go. Running. Harhime and Belle started running towards the fireplace mansion without realizing that a blonde-haired Renard woman lying on the floor and hiding was watching them from afar. This one was hidden with a black cloak covering it, but there was something else. He had a knife embedded in his stomach, his almost lifeless red eyes shone intensely as he watched Bel and Harhime. Woman. Take care of yourself, my little one. I know those two young men will take good care of you, their souls are the purest I have ever seen, smiling slightly. The woman closed her eyes to finally fall dead with a pool of blood around her, while her once bright eyes went out looking with a big smile, and for the last time you see the back of two pure young men with her daughter in their arms. End. A new motivation, 02. Bel and Harhime were silently entering the Twilight Mansion, with Bel covering the little Renard as best he could, who ignored the rain around her, concentrating more on the warmth that Bel gave her. Bel quietly closed the door, and together with Harhime, they walked to her room where they carefully placed the little girl on the bed. Bel. There you go, smiling, who is capable of leaving this little girl alone, looking at the girl. Harhime. What will we do with her, Bel-sama? Worried. Bel. I don't know, nervous, I've never taken care of a baby, looking away. Harhime. Me neither. Lowering her head with her ears drooping. Bel. An orphanage. Harhime. I don't think it's a good idea to leave her in an orphanage, uncomfortable, and many people know that Renard have a unique magic, looking at Bel. Bel. Do you want to take care of her? Smiling. Harhime was surprised by Bel's words, but quickly nodded with a sparkle in her eyes. Bel. Okay, scratching his neck, and how will we tell the family? Nervous. Harhime. I'm sure they'll support the decision, smiling kindly, so we can all take care of her, happy. Bel. You're right, looking at the little girl, doesn't she have a name? Looking through the little girl's blanket, the box didn't have any notes either, thinking. Harhime. Shall we put one on him? Shy. Bel smiled at Harhime and said. Bel. How about we name her? Smiling. Harhime. I don't think I can give it a good name, Shy, please choose it yourself, blushing. Bel thought for a few minutes before looking at the red eyes of the girl who was now awake. The little girl smiled at him and stretched out her hands trying to reach him in an adorable way. Both Bel and Harhime couldn't help but smile at the little girl who extended her arms so that one of them could pick her up. Harhime took the little girl in her arms and carried her sweetly, while her tail moved happily from side to side. The little girl smiled radiantly, while her tail also moved happily to be in Harhime's arms. Bel. Looking at the beautiful scene, how are you, Sayumi? Smiling. Harhime. My little princess. Surprised. Bel. Scratching his neck, I'm still a bit young, but I've sometimes thought about having a family, Shy, I have a few names that I would have liked to give to a son or daughter, embarrassed. Harhime. That's very nice, Bel-sama, smiling kindly. Bel looked at Harhime before blushing and turning his gaze back to the ground. Bel. Well, we can think more about the name, laughing. Harhime. Achoo. Sniffing her nose. Bel. I think we should go take a bath, looking at Harhime, still a little wet. Harhime hi, blushing. Harhime looked at the little girl before asking. Harhime. Shall we bathe her? Nervous. Bel hi, Shy, but how? Sweating. Harhime. Blank stare. Bel. We don't know how to feed her either or change her, more nervous. There they realized. They didn't know how to take care of a baby. In the Hestia family baths, in the women's area, Harhime was naked with her body wet in hot water. She had an expression of pleasure as she got into the hot water. She looked smiling at the little girl in her arms who looked curiously at the water. Harhime smiled maternally as she played with the water, wetting the little baby a little, who laughed amusedly. In the men's bathroom. Bel was also in the hot spring smiling with pleasure at the warm water that covered his already slightly marked body. This one had a face that completely reflected the pleasure he was feeling right now because it seemed like he was in paradise. As he felt the hot water return warmth to his previously cold room, he was lost in his thoughts. Bel. How are we going to tell this to the family? I know they won't be mad, but a baby is a big responsibility. I think we can all take care of her. Smiling, Sayumi, going deeper into the water. Bel had the water up to his nose as he blew through his mouth and watched the bubbles it made, or so it was until Harhime yelled at him from the other side. Harhime be Bel same. Bel was excited when he heard Harhime scream and quickly got out of the water with a towel around his waist that covered his manhood and ran to the girl's bathroom without hesitation, expecting anything. He entered and was confused when he saw Harhime hysterical looking everywhere with the baby in her arms crying. Bel. What happened? Worried. Harhime. And I don't know, she started crying out of nowhere, nervous. Bel was going to say something to Harhime before realizing that she was still naked, the only thing covering her private parts being her arms and her tail which was wrapped around her intimacy. Harhime-san. Blushing. Harhime was confused to see Bel blushing like a tomato until she realized their situation, she was naked and Bel only had a towel around his waist. Harhime. BBBB Bel-sama. Sanrahata. Elle looked away and turned around, giving the sword to Harhime, who did the same with the baby in her arms. L.W. What's wrong Harhime-san? Blushing. Harhime. L. The baby won't stop crying, blushing. Both Belle and Harhime looked at the little girl who was crying in Harhime's arms. L. Maybe he's hungry. Confused. Harhime. W. What do babies eat? Nervous. L. Thinking, no I don't know, frustrated. Harhime T-tal vesi smiles. Elle was surprised and blushed at that sudden moan and turned to see Harhime who was blushing trying not to fall into the water while panting. The reason? The baby, the little Renard was instinctively sucking one of Harhime's nipples. She was hungry as Belle had already said, but she needed milk, breast milk, and instinctively she had begun to suck Harhime's nipple to get milk. When she couldn't get her precious milk she began to suck harder, while Harhime slowly fell to the ground before being grabbed by Belle and ending up in his arms. Despite this Harhime did not let go of the little girl or loosen her grip. Belle. Hey, are you okay? Looking away. Harhime's chest was exposed and Belle, realizing this, looked away as quickly as he could, completely blushing. Belle. See, can you stand up? Blushing. Harhime high, standing up. Belle looked away and waited until Harhime gave him her confirmation. When he turned around he blushed less when he saw Harhime already with a slightly wet towel around her body and the baby still crying because she couldn't get any milk. Elle looked with a drop of sweat at the upset Harhime who, in an attempt to calm the baby, showed one of her breasts and let the baby suck. Harhime. W. Let's go to the room Bel-sama, walking slowly. Elle nodded and walked helping Harhime whose legs were trembling while the baby sucked. Harhime was very sensitive, not only that, as she still had part of her innocence, it was very easy for small touches to excite her excessively, and one as direct as the one now made it difficult for her not to faint. After a few minutes, they both arrived at Harhime's room, which was the closest to the hot springs, and they took Harhime's baby away, who fell onto the bed, breathing heavily. L. Are you okay, holding the baby? Harhime. High, nodding her head, but she doesn't stop crying, looking at the baby. I'm sorry little one, I'm not your real mother, so I can't give you real milk, lowering her head. L. And it's not your fault Harhime-san, blushing, see can't we give him something else to eat? Nervous. Harhime. When I lived in the Far East, Mom said they could only drink breast milk or, failing that, powdered milk, thinking. L. And regular milk. Smiling nervously. Harhime. I don't know, nervous. L. Can we try? Nervous, no, it's not a good idea, thinking. Harhime. Also, realizing something, we didn't bring the shopping, lowering her head with her ears drooping. L.A., in shock, oh right, sighing, that doesn't matter now, looking at the little girl in his arms. Elle looked at the baby who was still crying before looking at him with tears in her eyes. Elle. Please don't cry anymore, smiling kindly. We'll feed you even if it takes me all night to get the milk. Just wait for me, okay? With a fatherly smile. Harhime blushed hard when she saw Belle's charming smile that not only gave security to the little girl, but also to her. The baby stopped crying and started laughing, reaching out with one of her hands to grab Belle's hair and start playing with it by pulling it. Hey, that hurts, laughing. Elle and the baby played with smiles on their faces as they both looked at her ruby red eyes. This scene was also seen by Harhime, who had a beautiful smile on her face that clearly reflected her happiness, without her knowing her tail was also moving happily. But she couldn't hide her surprise when Belle began to rock the little girl, while humming a small melody that not only gave peace to the little girl, but also to Harhime who slowly closed her eyes, memorizing that beautiful melody that made the little girl sleep deeply in Belle's arms, while Harhime was not far from falling asleep. Belle stopped humming and left the little girl on Harhime's bed while he stretched. Belle. I think we should go eat with the others now, don't you think so Harhime? Harhime. Belle looked at Harhime who was lying in bed sleeping with an angelic expression on her face while in her arms she had the little red-eyed Renard. But there was one detail. Belle looked away when he noticed that the towel that barely covered Harhime was a little raised, and if he looked further down, he could see more than just her thighs, and like the gentleman and kind boy that he is, he didn't look. He looked away and left the room slowly and quietly, not wanting to wake either of them. As he closed the door he smiled kindly before someone could take him out of his thoughts. What are you doing, Belle? Belle. Hija. Surprised. Belle turned his gaze to see Welf who had a hand on his waist and looked him from head to toe before smiling ironically. Welf. So, looking at where he came from, that's why it took you so long, smiling proudly. Belle. And it's not what you think Welf. Nervous and blushing, Harhime started sneezing while we were shopping, and when we arrived we went to take a bath, but as she got dizzy, and I had to help her go to her room and let her sleep, shaking with nerves. Welf. Yes, yes, smiling ironically, come on Casanova, the family is hungry, walking towards the feeding trough. L.W. about that Welf, nervous. Welf curious. Everyone was in the dining room looking with expressions of stick at Belle who was in front of everyone doing a doggies. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Hestia. Well, we can't do anything, sighing. Tomorrow you have to go shopping again. Looking at Belle. How did you lose your shopping? Looking at Belle. EA. Nervous, the bags got really wet and one of them broke and everything fell to the floor. We tried to pick it up, but another one broke and the rain started to get stronger. We tried to carry what we could in our arms, but everything ended up falling and the last bag broke too, lowering his head. I'm sorry, lowering his head. Welf. Don't apologize, Belle, smiling at him, it's not your fault anyway, smiling. Makoto. Welf is right, Belle Dono, smiling, this is not the fault of either of them, smiling at him. Lily. It's not your fault, Belle-sama, let's blame the rain that caught them unexpectedly, smiling, in fact it also surprises me, it's rare that it rains during the day, thinking, it's considered good luck, but it seems that's not the case, laughing. Belle. I don't think so, smiling internally, actually yes it's a lot of luck, smiling. Belle smiled foolishly, but out of nowhere he remembered something, the gods cannot be lied to. Belle opened his eyes and looked at Hestia who was looking at him with suspicion and clear jealousy. She was going to say something if it weren't for Belle giving her a pleading look that made her shut up. Hestia sighed and nodded, letting Belle continue with his lie, but then he would have to explain it to her. Belle sat at the table where everyone started eating the leftovers of what was left, while Belle saved a portion for Harhime and also half of his food for Renard. He was seriously thinking, he hadn't told his family about the baby for a reason. Responsibility. He wasn't the most responsible person when it came to taking care of his health, after all he almost always came out of the dungeon injured, and besides that he didn't know how to take care of a baby, so the others would think it would be better to leave the little girl in an orphanage where they could take care of her, but Belle couldn't do that. Regardless of her unique ability, Belle had also grown fond of the little girl, and he had never seen Harhime so lively. Her happy expression is the same as when Belle pampers her or when Belle saved her and proclaimed himself her hero, something that she happily does. Belle wouldn't let his little girl go, that's right, a paternal instinct began to be born in him, an instinct that would make his enemies tremble when they wanted to hurt his daughter, he wouldn't abandon her, but first he needed to know how to take care of her, so he could go to Naz or Maich to ask them for advice, they were nurses in a certain way, so they could have some experience with some patients, he also had to buy clothes for the little girl. Not only that but also toys and spend a lot of time with her, he couldn't let Harhime take care of it alone, it would be too much pressure for her and for anyone in general. Belle began to make thousands of plans in his mind, to redo his schedule, to think about expenses and all kinds of things, and above all. In protecting his little girl, he would protect her without hesitation, even if he gave his life in the process, he would not allow anyone to ever harm his little girl. That day, that hour, that second, Belle had made an unbreakable promise to him, a promise that his back, or rather his state, demonstrated. His ability Lyris Free stopped working for a moment, being stronger to reach the woman he loved had stopped being his priority, but a few moments later it was activated again, this time with more force than ever, a new desire for which to work had been born, a father's instinct. Belle. I will become strong to protect her. End. Discovery, 03. It was already nighttime, and Belle was running to the mansion with the pantry again, to his relief it had stopped raining, and now he just had to get to the mansion. When I get there I see all the lights off, implying that everyone had already gone to sleep. Belle went straight to Harhime's room while throwing the shopping bag to who knows where, only taking a bottle of milk in his right hand. Belle. Hello. Slowly opening the door. Belle looked inside Harhime's room, seeing how dark it was inside. Belle carefully entered the room and looked at Harhime who was asleep in bed with a little girl in her arms, being very careful not to crush or hurt her. Belle smiled and approached Harhime, covering her with a blanket next to the baby. Belle left the milk on the nightstand in Harhime's room and left the room very calmly. Belle walked 5 doors before reaching his room and quietly opening it to see his room. He had a normal bed in the left corner of the room, next to it a nightstand with a small lamp, a wardrobe and an armor dummy that had his white armor hanging on it. Belle changed into his pajamas and lay down on the bed with complete peace of mind, thinking that he could now sleep without worrying. Lie. Belle opened his eyes out of nowhere as he felt a great discomfort in him, he moved from side to side, rolled around in the bed, changed the pillow etc, but even so, he was not able to get rid of that discomfort he felt. Belle. Damn. Sticks his face into the pillow. Belle sighed resignedly before getting out of bed tired and walking to Harhime's room. Belle opened the door a little and looked through the crack at Harhime and Sayumi sleeping peacefully. Belle closed the door and returned to his room to sleep. And that process was repeated about 5 times. It's not that Bel distrusted Harhime, on the contrary, he didn't think there was anyone better than her to take care of the baby, but his father's instinct didn't allow him to be calm without protecting his little girl. Until he finally decided and brought a blanket and a pillow to Harhime's room. Bel lay down on the hard floor with a pillow on his head and the blanket covering him and was about to sleep very peacefully if not for a ray of light hitting his face. Bel opened his eyes wide and looked out the window, slowly watching the sun rise little by little. Bel. Are you kidding? Shocked. Ah. Harhime stretched out on her bed next to the baby who yawned cutely, her little ears perked up. Harhime looked at the little girl and smiled motherly as they put their noses together and smiled. Harhime. Let's go look for Bel-sama, smiling. The baby smiled radiantly at her as her beautiful ruby eyes gazed into Harhime's emerald green ones. Harhime got out of bed calmly until she heard a moan. Ouch. Harhime Bel-sama. Harhime. Couldn't sleep. Looking at Bel with dark circles under her eyes. Bel. No, yawning, I'm worried about Sayumi, whispering embarrassed. Bel and Harhime were walking through the streets of Orario calmly. Harhime had her typical maid outfit while carrying Sayumi in her arms, who looked everywhere with curiosity while her tail moved happily. Bel was stuck to her side walking with an expression of total tiredness, but despite that his ruby eyes shone with a burning happiness when he looked at the little Sayumi, who always gave him a beautiful smile when he looked at her. Both young people continued walking with total tranquility, enjoying the moment without knowing that rumors spread very little in the daytime. Have you seen it? Yes, that's little rookie, right? That's right. And look, he has a beautiful Renard by his side. That's not the most surprising thing, didn't you see the girl? True. Do you think she's your daughter? It's obvious that it is. Don't you see it? It's an exact copy of both of them, white skin, red eyes, blonde hair and Renard features, obviously it's from both of them. Quickly the rumors began to spread throughout the world, it didn't take long for several places to find out about the news. In the guild. Misha. Aina-chan. Running. Aina. Misha. What happened now? Sighing. Misha. Haven't you heard the rumors? Shaking her. Aina-s about what? Surprised. Misha. About little rookie having a daughter with a Renard girl. Smiling. Aina. In shock. In the Twilight Mansion. Ace-chan. Ace, who was walking through the halls of the Twilight Mansion with Riveria, stopped and looked expressionlessly at Tyan, who was running excitedly with Tyan and Lefiya. Riveria Tiona. Raising an eyebrow. Tyan. Did you find out? Excited. Lefiya. That human. Trembling. Ace tilting his head. Tiona. It's Argonaut-kun. Shaking his arms. Ace Bell. With a worried expression. The girls, seeing Ace's expression, couldn't help but get more nervous at the news they were about to give her. It was well known to them that Ace had a certain interest in Bell, not only for his strength, or at least not anymore. Riveria knew it perfectly well. Ace no longer only felt friendship or curiosity for Bell. That's why Riveria put on a worried expression, she knew that what the 3 women were about to say to Ace would cause big problems in the future. Tyan. Well, uncomfortable. Lefiya Bell Cranel, lowering her head. Fiona Tube. The daughter. While the rumors spread at the speed of light, our young couple was walking calmly towards the Dian-sech family pharmacy. They had gone to the Maich family pharmacy, but it seemed that it was closed for personal reasons, and there was no one at home. Upon entering the office they were greeted by a beautiful woman with wavy silver hair and purple eyes, who was wearing a short white nurse's dress with some yellow and purple details, in addition to the typical nurse's headband. It was Ermine Tiesener, the best healer in Orario. Ermine. How can I help you? Expressionless. Eliedo. Scratching the back of his neck, can you help us with something? Pointing at the baby. Ermine. Raising an eyebrow. At the top of Babel. The silver-haired purple-eyed goddess who looked a bit like Ermine was forcefully swiping at a handkerchief while throwing a tantrum. Freya. How the hell did this happen? Angry, I've been waiting for days and I've never seen a relationship like this between those two. Angry, but that girl clearly belongs to both of them. Looking at the girl. Freya. No, her appearance is the same as theirs, but her essence is different, it would be, but it doesn't matter if she's his daughter or not. Bell probably considers her his real daughter. Pout. Daughter. Wants me to do something Freya-sama, expressionless. Freya. I would love to say yes, but not, it would be, when he is with her his brightness is stronger than ever, even now he is dazzling so much that my eyes sting, smiling excitedly, for the moment leave them. I want to see what happens from now on. Returned. Never mind. I see, thinking, first of all I have to explain several things about babies, in addition to the problems and challenges that both will have for 2 reasons, the first being that they are young parents, and the second being that they are first-time parents, looking at both. L. What would happen if she was adopted? Curious. Never mind. They would take her away calmly, since they are very young, even if they are a whole family, the guild would take them away by force and leave her either in an orphanage or with someone more capable, looking for powdered milk, but you are her real parents, right? Looking seriously at both of them. Harhime remained silent, not knowing how to respond. She didn't know that they could take Sayumi away from her, and there was no one in the family who could take responsibility, much less the goddess Hestia. But luckily for him, his beloved hero acted first. Belle. Of course she's my daughter, smiling radiantly, look. She took out my eyes, smiling. Belle opened his eyes looking at the little girl who also looked at him with her eyes identical to Belle's. Ermind squinted at the three before sighing. Ermind. I know you're lying to me, expressionless. Both Belle and Harhime were alarmed and looked at Ermind, sweating profusely. Ermind. I'm sorry but I have to. Belle. Please. Kneeling before Ermind, she is very precious to us, please Ermind-san, pleading. Ermind. They're too young too. Ermind couldn't finish when Harhime also knelt before her pleading, obviously being careful not to hurt Sayumi. Harhime. We beg you. Crying, don't take her away from us. Lowering her head. Harhime's tail wrapped protectively around Sayumi, who, seeing Belle kneeling and Harhime crying, began to cry as well. Ermind looked around, not knowing what to do, until she let out a heavy sigh and looked at the three of them, knowing that she would regret it, or maybe not. Ermind. Are you sure you can take care of her on your own? It would be. Harhime. Belle. Hi. Lowering her head. Ermind. Very well, sighing, don't make me regret this, looking at both of them. Belle. Hi. Looking at Ermind, thank you very much, Ermind-sama. Crying comically. Ermind. Don't call me that, sighing, don't let anyone know about this, and above all be careful with the blood tests, that way people could find out that she's adopted, looking at the little girl, what did you say her name was? Looking at Harhime. Harhime. It's Sayumi, smiling maternally. Belle. Sayumi Cranel, smiling. Ermind. I see, thinking, if people realize that she is not their daughter, they will take her away without hesitation, making Belle sweat, but seeing such a resemblance, I guess it is not necessary, looking at the little one, she has her red eyes, her white skin, her mouth, the shape of her eyes, looking at Belle, and she has her nose, tail, ears, chin, looking at Harhime, I will tell them about the problems and advice about being new parents, going towards a stretcher. Belle Harhime high, going next to her. Ermind. First of all, pointing at Harhime's breast milk, expressionless. Belle and Harhime blushed hard and looked at Ermind intently. Ermind. You see, many believe that only a mother is capable of producing milk after giving birth to the baby, but that's a lie. Harhime-san, how old are you? Looking at her. Harhime. 16 years old, nervous. Ermind. Very well, writing it down, then you are ready. Both. Ready. Confused. Ermind. You see, if the baby keeps stimulating you, it's very likely that you'll produce milk, looking at Harhime. L.E.A. Surprised. Ermind high, because Harhime-san is already in full adolescence, then her breasts are ready to produce milk, if the baby continues stimulating you will be able to feed her, looking at both, and it is likely that while this happens your breasts will grow too, but that is an extra fact, showing a container with powdered milk, when you cannot give her breast milk, you can give her this, showing the milk. Hello. How do we give it to him, confused. Ermind varies, pointing at the powdered milk, to prepare it first you have to put hot water in one of these bottles, showing a bottle, then you put 2 small spoonfuls of powdered milk and cover it, showing how to do it, cover it well and start shaking it, when the milk is warm, try a little of it to see if it is okay, and if it is then give it to the baby, giving the bottle to Belle, try a little, that's how she should know if it is ready. Belle took the bottle and pressed it against his hand, letting out a little milk that he drank. Belle. It tastes weird, with a strange face. Harhime also tried a little memorizing the taste to feed Sayumi. Ermind. Listen, you'll have to overcome several challenges, this is one of them, expressionless, plus you'll have to work twice as hard to get money for the baby's needs, showing a bunch of bottles, powdered milk packets, diapers and talcum powder. Ermind. I'll teach you, dark look. Belle couldn't help but remember Ina when she gave him her strict classes about the dungeon, and trembled with fear. Belle was leaving the infirmary with a slightly contented Ermind. Ermind. Thank you for your purchase, bowing. Belle high, empty look. They had spent a lot of money, while Ermind explained to them in detail how to take care of a baby and the problems they may have as first-time parents. First of all. New responsibilities, their own needs take a backseat and the baby's needs take a first place, they will have less time for themselves and will feel somewhat overwhelmed due to the new obligations. Second. Lifestyle changes. Do the little girl's schedules change yours as parents? For example, every 2 hours. She has to eat approximately every so often, or she has to be groomed constantly. The little girl has to be attended to, no matter what. Third. Being first-time parents, emotions arise such as fear of not doing it quite right, frustration due to the new changes, and jealousy towards your partner for paying excessive attention to the baby, and even depression due to feeling emotionally exhausted. Fourth. Being a new member in the family can alter the relationship of the couple, and the lack of sleep causes more irresponsibility in both parties. And finally, the baby needs excessive attention. Harhime had told them that every night he would wake up and cry, although many babies cannot go back to sleep afterwards and others can. The causes could be the temperament of the little one who may be a little nervous. Other problems include gas in the stomach, a lot of hunger, need to be hugged, too hot or cold, or he simply does not feel well for some reason. That and many more things were what Harhime had forced them to learn. Belle ended up buying an energy potion to be at 100 for not having been able to sleep. Belle. I didn't think it would be so troublesome, sighing resignedly. How is Sayumi? Looking at Harhime. Harhime. P looks like she's hungry, blushing. Belle looked for a second at Sayumi who was pulling Harhime's clothes so she could suck her nipple and drink milk. Belle. Let's go to the fireplace mansion then, blushing. Harhime nodded and walked with Belle towards the fireplace mansion, not knowing that in the distance they were being watched by 5 girls, 2 Amazons, 2 elves and a blonde-haired girl. The 4 of them looked worriedly at Aze who was completely still without moving a muscle with her gaze lost in Belle's sword. Fiona and she can't really be his daughter, right? Nervous. Tyan. Think about it a little, Tyan, sighing, is the exact copy of both of them. You saw her eyes and her Renard features, looking at the couple in the distance. Riveria Aze. Looking at her worriedly. Aze was still in shock, looking at her father's back reflected in Belle as he slowly walked away. The one she thought would be her hero had left to become someone else's, her fists clenched tightly, and the 4 of them could notice it. Lefiya Aze-san, nervous, her hand, worried. Aze looked expressionlessly at her hand which had a little blood due to her strong pressure. Aze looked into nothingness with an empty look and began to walk towards the Twilight Mansion slowly while everyone moved out of her way when they saw her dead look. Lefiya. He's a damn human. Angry, he already had Aze-san's attention. Damn womanizer. Angry. Riveria. Well, we can't blame him, we never knew if he loved Aze or not, besides, at first she didn't feel anything more than interest in him, sighing. Tyan. It's true, lowering her head. Fiona. But that changed, didn't it? Upset. Tyan. There's nothing we can do, Tyan, sighing. Riveria. I just hope this doesn't take away the progress Cranel made to make Aze more expressive, worried. The young couple stealthily entered the fireplace mansion where they went directly to Harhime's room and quietly left all their things while the baby looked at them sitting on a white rug that Harhime had there. Belle. Well, let's see, thinking, since she will keep both of them, it would be best if each one had materials to take care of her, such as milk, bottles, diapers, etc. Thinking. Harhime. Belle-sama, nervous. Belle. EA. Turning to look at her. Harhime. Should I feed him now? Noticing how hungry Sayumi was. Hi, I'm going to turning around. Harhime smiled at Belle before pulling down part of her bra and revealing one of her breasts which Sayumi quickly began to suck. Harhime endured her blush as best she could and waited patiently for what Harhime said to happen. They were like that for a few minutes until finally Harhime felt something come out of her chest, making her blush with embarrassment. Sayumi looked happy after a lot of sucking and finally getting her precious milk, and now she was sucking more gently, while her tail was happily waving. While Belle was saying goodbye to her savings thinking about everything she had to buy, a crib, more diapers and powdered milk, clothes, etc. The only clothes the little girl had right now were ones that Harhime gave them, it was a simple pink romper over a diaper. Belle. I have to go further down into the dungeon, whispering. Harhime. It's over Belle-sama, smiling. Belle reacted to Harhime's voice and turned his gaze seeing her already with her clothes in place and with a little baby resting in complete tranquility. Belle. Harhime said we have to pat him on the back now, didn't she? Curious, see can I do it? Shy. Harhime smiled and gave it to Sayumi who looked curiously at her father who picked her up and hugged her gently while patting her back gently. The little girl seemed to enjoy it as if it were a massage and let out a small burp that made Belle and Harhime laugh. The little girl fell half asleep in an adoring way being watched by her now mother and father. The place was filled with a warm homey aura worthy of a happy family, a beautiful moment. Which was ruined when the door opened abruptly, entering all the members of the Hestia family. Lily. Here they are. Agitated. Makoto. Harhime dono. Belle dono. Congratulations. Smiling. Welf Belle. Why didn't you say anything, damn you're a lucky guy, proud. Hestia. Belle-kun. What's this about you having a daughter? Upset. Yeah. A beautiful family scene. And a few problems, 04. Bel and Harhime were in front of the whole family with their heads down. Hestia and Lily looked at them seriously and jealously, except for Welf and Makoto who seemed proud for some reason. Hestia was going to speak if it weren't for the fact that the mansion door opened out of nowhere and two people walked in, an upset half-elf and a proud Amazon. Aisha. Harhime. Why didn't you tell me? Let me see the little one, happy. Aina Bel-kun. Angry, how come you have a daughter? Dark look. Lily. Yes. How come they have a daughter? Annoyed look. Welf. I'd like to know too, raising his hand. Makoto. If it's not too much trouble, blushing. Hestia. Come on. Explain. Angry. Bel and Harhime felt a little chill when they saw themselves surrounded by everyone and held hands crying comically while apologizing. All this was seen innocently and curiously by an entertained Sayumi who was in the meeting room where they had removed the table and left her on the red carpet. Bel was in front of Lily and Hestia. He had suggested to Harhime that they explain the subject to them separately. First he would explain to his goddess and Lily, while she would explain to Welf, Makoto and Aisha. And lastly, Aina, right. Aina was from the guild, and no matter how much he trusted her and how much he appreciated her, he knew that she would do everything possible to ensure that he wasn't in danger or trouble, and a baby would cause her a lot of problems. Hestia and Lily understood the situation, both seemed more than relieved that she was not really their blood daughter, but quickly began to see the pros and cons, or well actually only Lily. Hestia quickly accepted him and gave him her full support with the baby, if he needed anything she would help him. But Lily was more observant and began to ask Bel different questions about whether she could take care of the baby. Lily. I understand that if we leave her in an orphanage, it would be a big problem in the future because of the Renart's unique magic, but are you sure you can take care of her? Doubtful, you'll have to wake up at night, be watching over her all the time, and more importantly, she'll be very close to Harhime-sama, trembling. Hestia, realizing Lily's words, changed her happy expression to one of shock. It was true, the girl probably already saw both of them as father and mother, and also by her appearance, it was not very difficult for many people to consider that, but before saying something Bel answered Lily. Bel. I'm sure I can take care of her. With determination, I will take full care of her along with Harhime, but bowing, please help me raise her. Hestia. Muo, what can you do? With pride, let the goddess of the home help you raise your little one, Chibi. Lily. I'm still a little unsure about this, uncomfortable. Bel. Lily. You don't like the baby, do you want us to leave her? Sad. Lily. Of course not, it would be, if you end up on the streets. I don't want you to be like my old self, looking at the little girl. Besides, you have already made a decision, Bel-sama, and if you decide to go to hell, I would gladly go with you there and back, smiling. Bel smiled at them both and bowed. Bel. Thank you so much. About to cry. Hestia. You will be, smiling. Lily. We will always support you, Bel-sama, smiling. But Harhime. Harhime was in front of Welf, Makoto and Aisha with a baby in her arms who looked at the three with curiosity. Aisha. I see, thinking, what a disappointment, and I thought you were no longer a virgin, disappointed. Harhime Aisha-sama. Blushing. Welf. I understand the situation, thinking, if you need something for the baby just ask, giving Harhime a thumbs up. Harhime smiled and looked at Makoto who saw her smiling. Makoto. If you need anything, just ask. I'll be happy to help you. Harhime Dono, smiling. Harhime gave a radiant smile and bowed slightly to everyone to thank them. Harhime. Thank you very much. Smiling. They all smiled together and began to ask about the baby, who simply looked happy to see her mother so happy, and this was demonstrated by the tails of both Renard, which moved from side to side. Bel, extremely nervous, was in front of Aina, who looked very serious and with a dark look. Aina. Now explain before I consider increasing your study hours with me, it would be. Bel got a chill in his stomach at that. He knew Aina wasn't joking at all, so he thought about answering quickly, but the problem was he didn't know that. I couldn't just tell her that she was adopted. The fear and panic of having her little girl taken away from her were easily seen when she started to sweat cold and looked at Aina in panic, something that is noticeable. Aina. Well. Expressive. It was at that moment that Bel remembered something extremely important that could now save his life. Flashback. An old bearded man could be seen sitting on the grass. Curiously, the sun was so strong that it hit his eyes. He had a silly smile as he looked at a small boy with white hair and red eyes who was sitting next to him. Grandfather, Zeus. Listen, Bel, now I'm going to teach you the art of deception, smiling. Bel. Huh. Tilts his head, why do I need to deceive? Confused. Zeus. Listen, Bel, when your wife or girlfriend finds out you're with your lover, you should be able to lie, looking into the distance, like this, and with luck, you can have a Harhime. Raising his fist. Bel. And why do I need to deceive, tilting his head. Zeus. You'll understand in time, patting Belle on the back, but now let me show you my dear grandson, smiling, let me show you. Zeus's voice changed to a nostalgic one as he remembered a black-haired man with red eyes who looked at him timidly. I would like Zeus-sama to teach me. Oh? Okay, my son, let me show you how to have a ha. Then flashback. Belle smiled nervously inside. When he learned what a harem was, he never thought that his grandfather's teachings would really work. After all, if he found a woman he loved, he planned to be totally faithful to her and only her, although of course like any boy he thought it would be a pretty girl that he would save like a hero from the stories he read as a child, and in reality that did happen. Without him knowing it, he began to feel something more than friendship for Harhime, while his feelings for Ace gradually disappeared without him realizing it. Aina. I'm waiting, expressive. Belle took a deep breath and looked at Aina with mock seriousness. Belle. Quick, come up with a believable story now. Screaming at his brain, you see it was a year ago. Everyone was expectantly looking at the giant door of the meeting room. They were very nervous because they had been told what would happen if the guild found out if they were not their parents. His nerves grew as he saw the door slowly open. But they were confused when they saw Aina come out with a handkerchief, wiping her tears while they hugged Belle. He had a stupid face, not knowing what to do. Aina. Sorry for doubting you, Belle-kun, wiping away tears. You have my full support, smiling at him. Hi, smiling nervously, I didn't think it would work. And remember Belle, the best way to calm a woman is to captivate her. Belle. Right now, I really appreciate your lessons, Grandpa, and I'm tears. Aina. Well, I think it's time for me to go, smiling, if you have any questions or need anything from me, don't hesitate to come to me for help, I'll be happy to help you, smiling at Harhime and Belle. Both young men nodded embarrassedly, and how could they not, to make the lie more believable they were holding hands while Belle was now carrying the baby. Aina. Just remember not to give him a sibling too soon, winking at the couple. Everyone blushed hard at that comment, except for Belle who still didn't understand and tilted his head in confusion. The little Renard did the same, causing Aina to bleed from her nose at the adorable father-daughter scene. Belly Aina-san. Going to help her. Aina and don't worry, wiping her nose, well, I'm leaving, bowing. Aina left the fireplace mansion still happy with the image of Belle and the little girl tilting her head, a beautiful scene according to her. But the others. Belle. How strange, looking where Aina went, do you know what she meant? Looking at everyone. Belle could be very innocent and very silly sometimes. Everyone blushed hard except for Aisha, who smiled ironically and pushed Harhime towards Belle. Harhime Aisha-sama. Blushing. Aisha winked at Harhime, who looked at Belle blushing before approaching him and whispering in his ear. Harhime. Belle-sama, blushing, what Aina-san was referring to was, whispering, then you do this whispered, and then this whispered like beasts, blushing. N.T. My respects to whoever understood that reference. Belle stood with a silly face for a few seconds as he processed Harhime's words. Belle. Belle.exe is processing the information, oh? Belle blushed quickly like a tomato and began to stutter. Belly Aina-san. Blushing. In the distance a certain half-elf gave a small smile at nothing as she made her way to the guild. Elsewhere. The fertility hostess had become a mess. Anya, Chloe, Lunwar etc., and Mamma Mia were behind Sir and Ryu, who had dark looks. In front of them was a gagged and tied-up man with a little beard and a bit bald. He was Mord, an adventurer who in the past had tried to kidnap the goddess of Belle, but now they got along well and were even friends, but… More? What do they want from me, terrified. Sir Ara, smiling. Ryu. You said something about little rookie having a daughter, sharp look, spit it out. Sir. Don't make it harder, smiling. Mord. I'll tell you everything. Crying profusely. Anya, my mom. My mom? Looking at her. Anya. Don't you think we should help him? Feeling sorry. Chloe. She won't survive much longer like this, curious. My mom. Don't worry, as long as he pays me I'll stop Ryu and Sir when they're about to go too far and leave him half dead, smiling, stonks. Mord. I told you. There are rumors that Belle Cranel had a daughter with a Renard girl. Terrified. Sir continued smiling innocently, while Ryu already had a knife in his hand. Mord. Ah. F your respect, Mord. In the fireplace mansion. Belle shivered slightly and for some reason felt sorry for Mord, but he was brought out of his thoughts when a cry was heard from his chest. Belle. What's up, Sayue? Sniffing. I'll go change you, covering his nose. This was seen by Harhime, who laughed openly and went to Belle's side. Harhime. I'll help you, smiling. Escha and Lily were depressed in the meeting room while drinking tea, or so it was until the door opened and both turned their gaze, both had to cover their mouths trying to contain their laughter in a useless way. Lily. Wapfff. What happened to Belle, Hisama, laughing. Hestia. Why are you can't take it anymore. Ha 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 ha. Throwing herself on the couch. Lily imitated Hestia and threw herself on the couch, rolling in circles while laughing like crazy. The reason? Belle and Harhime were covered in talcum powder from head to toe, both had messy white hair, Harhime's tail also had some white parts, the aforementioned had Sayumi in her arms, which looked perfectly clean and with a new diaper. Belle. Cough next time let's not use so much coughing. Harhime achoo. Cute sneeze, high, smiling nervously. Hestia. What happened to them? Smiling. Belle. We changed his diaper, dark look. Lily. And that's how they ended up like that. Laughing. Harhime. It's harder than it looks, lowering her head. Hestia. Why don't you take a shower? Smiling. Belle. Oh right, approaching Lily, do you think you can cure her Lily? Smiling. Lily. That question offends Lily. Belle-sama pouts, of course I can, sure. Harhime indecisively left Sayumi in the hands of Lily and Hestia, who looked at the little girl, as if it were an easy thing, after all they had seen how she behaved with Belle and Harhime, so she probably always behaves calmly. Ah poor fools. Belle and Harhime were in the family's hot springs, obviously Harhime on the girl's side and Belle on the boy's side, both were taking a relaxing shower until they heard a scream that alarmed them. They both got out of the water, grabbed their towels, covered themselves with them, and ran off to the meeting room. They both opened the door at the same time, excited, and were greatly surprised to see Lily lying on the floor face down, stained with milk, and an open bottle in her hand. Hestia was sitting on the couch next to the baby with several scratches on her body, while giving a bottle to the baby who took it happily. Belle. What happened? Nervous. Hestia. Lily tried to make a bottle for Sayumi, but she tripped on a diaper and ended up like this, looking at poor Lily, and I tried to make one too, and I succeeded, but the girl was already very hungry and started to fight with me, empty look, finally I was able to give her the bottle, fainting. Belle and Harhime watched with a drop of sweat as the baby sat on Hestia while continuing to drink her milk. Hestia. She has a lot of energy, looking at Belle. Belle. Laughing nervously. Harhime went to Sayumi and calmly held her in her arms. The little girl seemed happy to be in her mother's arms again and continued drinking her milk with Harhime's help. Belle. I think it's better if we go get dressed, looking away. Harhime. Looking at Belle. Harhime realized that they were still in towels which barely covered them. Harhime was about to look away when by a small accident Belle's towel fell. Harhime. Belle. In shock. Harhime fell back unconscious on the couch with a trickle of blood on her nose, while Belle tried to cover himself again with the towels. Harhime. It's big, falling asleep. Belle damn, embarrassing. The crib. Belle high, nervous, can you do a Welf? Looking at Welf. Welf. Of course, smiling, but I'll make it out of wood, I want to see if I'm as good with it as I am with metal, laughing. Belle. Thank you, smiling. Welf. Oh, by the way, Belle, smiling nervously, I heard rumors that they're urgently looking for you at the fertility hostess, looking at Belle. Belle. Confused, okay, I'll go see why later, smiling. Welf hi, thinking, I don't have a good feeling. Belle said goodbye to Welf and returned to the meeting room, there he saw Makoto and Aisha fighting for some reason, while Harhime laughed nervously and tried to stop them with the baby in her arms. Belle. May I? Smiling. Harhime. Of course Belle-sama, smiling. Makoto. But he didn't let us. Crying comically. Harhime. It's just that Belle is an exception, blushing. Aisha. I understand, only your man can carry your daughter, nodding her head. Harhime. And it's not that, blushing. Belle. Scratching his neck, I'm going out, leaving. Harhime. Where to, alarmed. Belle. I'll go to the fertility hostess, apparently they wanted to talk to me, smiling nervously, and I have a feeling I should take her, with a shiver. Harhime. Okay but don't take too long, worried. Belle. If you're worried about Sayumi, you can come with me, smiling kindly. Harhime. I would love to, Belle-sama, but I still have to make dinner, excuse me, bowing. Belle. Don't worry, sorry I couldn't help you, sorry. Harhime. And it's not your fault, shy, but don't be late, pout. Belle. I'll be back soon, okay. Rubbing his head. Harhime blushed and nodded, letting Belle leave. Once the door closed, Aisha gave Harhime a mischievous look. Aisha. So, have you done it yet? Smiling. Harhime. Aisha-sama. Blushing. Makoto, imagining Belle and Harhime doing unholy things, blushed hard and looked away while a thin line of blood ran down her nose. Harhime and Makoto-san. Blushing. Belle was walking through the streets of Orario with a little girl in his arms who looked at everything curiously with her beautiful blonde eyes. But there was an extra detail, the murmurs. Belle could easily hear the murmurs of people about him and his daughter. Mostly they were comments about how pretty she was, or that he was very young, that he was very lucky to have a beautiful wife, or that he was even very handsome, and that they would like to give him another child. Belle shuddered slightly as he listened to the vulgar women, mostly Amazons, who showed a lot of skin. Belle ignored everything but the little girl didn't. Seeing all the looks on her, Sayumi got nervous and was about to cry, something that alerted Belle. Belle. Don't worry, smiling, Dad is here, smiling fatherly. Belle smiled when he saw that the little girl had calmed down and lay down on the bed, preparing to sleep to ignore the stares. He continued walking, getting closer and closer to the fertility hostess, feeling chills when he thought about the bar. Anya was watching the door to see if there were any new customers, although more than watching she was slacking off, resting her head on her hands and on a broom. But she was brought out of her thoughts when a daddy rabbit spoke to her very calmly. Belle. Hello Anya-san, smiling. Anya looked at him for a second before becoming alarmed. Anya. What are you doing here, Rabbit Naya, alarmed. Belle. Huh. Well said they were looking for me, tilting his head. Anya. Yes Naya, but they were looking for you too. Anya couldn't finish when the door slowly opened and from there you could see Sir's smiling face. Sir. Please come in, Belle-kun. LH hi, excuse me. Anya looked at Belle with pity and continued watching. When Belle entered he was slightly surprised to see it almost empty, although after thinking about it a bit, it was normal since it was still daytime. Normally whenever he came to pick up his lunch made by Sir there weren't many people. But he was taken out of his thoughts when Sir took him to a more private place where Ryu was also. Belle. Hey. What's up, girls? Why? Sir Belle-kun, smiling, what's this about you having a baby, smiling. Belle. Oh. Smiling, you mean Sayumi, showing her, say hello little one, smiling. The little girl looked at both women who were in shock. Sayumi ba. Sucking her finger. Ryu and Sir looked at Belle, then at the little girl, then at Belle, and so on about 12 times until Sir finally spoke. Sir CCC how? In shock, as she's identical to you Belle-kun, smiling. Belle. Well, she's my daughter, proud. Ryu. H how, surprised, see Crabble-san, what did he say his age was, doubtful. Belle. Huh. Why? Ticking his head. Ryu. That means she had that daughter at 13, nervous. Belle. Huh. Surprised, I understand now, laughing nervously, she looks a lot like me, right? Smiling, she's not really my daughter, scratching his neck. Sir A. How's that? Confused. Belle. Well. Sir. So she's not your daughter, relieved. Ryu seemed to relax greatly at that revelation and gave a smile towards Belle, a smile that quickly disappeared when he realized her thoughts. Ryu. They are really similar, looking at the girl closely. The little Renard looked curiously at Ryu before extending her hands towards her ears. Ryu quickly walked away knowing the little girl's intentions, she couldn't let someone touch her precious pride, besides it was sensitive there, and a baby would touch that sensitive area, and leaving her with a baby that bites and squeezes all kinds of things she finds, wasn't a very good idea to say the least. The little girl, not having what she wanted, became sad and lowered her head. Ryu felt his heart tighten when he saw the sad little Renard and looked at Sir for help. Sir quickly understood and gave a big smile before approaching the baby. Sir. Hello. I'm Sir Flova. I'm a good friend of your father's and I can be something more if you want. Smiling. Sir, as perceptive as ever, but to the surprise of both women, Belle did not blush and began to stutter. No, unlike his previous self, he reacted in a calmer and more serene manner. Belle. I don't think she'll do that. She already has a mother after all, right? Looking at the little girl. As if the little girl understood, she nodded quickly while her tail moved gently. Both women felt an arrow pierce their hearts and imagined themselves with Belle and a little girl who looked very similar to both of them. Sir smiled foolishly while Ryu tried to dismiss his thoughts while shaking his head. Belle smiled at both women and spoke. Belle. If that's all they needed then I'll leave, calmly leaving. Sir. Wait. Extending his hand, don't you want to stay for lunch? Smiling. Belle. I'm sorry but I promised Harhime-san that I would return to Sayumi before the frown or else I would look for her, smiling. Ryu. Harhime-san. Raising an eyebrow. Belle. Oh. She's a Renard girl who joined my family recently. She's from the Far East and has blonde hair. Smiling, see you. Leaving. Ryu and Sir remained silent imagining a beautiful Renard girl with beautiful blonde hair hugging Belle and little Sayumi. Both of them couldn't help but have a depressive aura and returned to the bar. Belle-sama. Sayumi. Belle smiled as he watched Harhime run towards them with a cheerful smile. Harhime. Welcome, smiling. We are home. And. A date. 05. Leave your feelings for Ace. Hey? Belle was shocked to hear Hesja's serious words. What is Kami-sama talking about, surprised. Hesja. Belle, serious, tell me what you feel for Ace. I love her, nervous. Hesja. Are you sure? It would be. Belle's, thinking. Belle was in shock, he didn't know what to think about his feelings for Ace, or rather, they weren't there anymore, although he was sure that he still felt that admiration for being as strong as her, it was simply that, there was no love, only friendship. For a fleeting moment, the image of Ace appeared, and nothing, he felt nothing, unlike the image of Harhime and Sayumi laughing, that made his cheeks heat up. I don't know, lowering his head, as she was my first love and the person for whom I became so strong, but I can't leave Harhime and Sayumi, scared, what do I have to do? Hesja. Let go of Ace, it would be, look Belle, now that you took the responsibility of being a father you cannot be aware of another girl, and in general any person other than your wife and your daughter, or in this case the girl that your daughter sees as a mother. I know that Harhime and you are nothing, but the girl sees you both as her paternal figures, and you have to be at her and Harhime's complete disposal. You are going to have a very busy schedule going to the dungeon to get money and then take care of your daughter with Harhime, so you do not have time for many things, and I do not think it is a good idea to try to fall in love with someone who probably only sees you as a good friend and nothing more. Uncomfortable. Hesja was uncomfortable, she didn't want to be so hard on Belle, but this was the reality, and although Belle is still just a boy who is about to turn 15, he took on the responsibility of being a father with Harhime, so he had to mature now. Hesja. Would you leave your daughter for an impossible love? It would be. No, lowering his head, even if that love is real I wouldn't leave my little girl, I would never leave her, determined. Hesja smiled at Belle's determination, but her gaze changed to one of sadness for what he was about to do, and she bit her lip. The first step to maturing was to let go of her most important dream. Belle could no longer be a hero to everyone. Hesja. Tell me something Belle, you would give anything for Sayumi, looking at him. Belle. Of course. Seriously. Hesja. In that case you can only be her hero and Harhime's, it would be. Hesja. Listen Belle, you know that every day you put yourself in danger to save someone and that's not good. I know you do it because you want to be a hero and help others, and that's something admirable, but you must abandon that dream, firm. Belle. But. Hesja. No buts, what do you think would happen to Sayumi and Harhime if one day their hero died or ended up in a big accident saving someone else? Your priority now is those two and only those two, you can't put yourself in danger every moment, now what are you going to take care of them? Expressionless. But I promise to always come back with Vi. Laugh. In shock. Hesja. No, would be, this is not a game Belle if that's what you think, you are not invincible, you are not the strongest, you are not a god, and even a god who loves his children would not do this stupidity. Now you are a father, and a father must always watch over his son or daughter, standing up from the chair, even if you hate me for this my duty as your goddess is to guide you, raising her voice, Belle Cranel. This is a divine order, would be, you cannot disobey it, lowering her gaze, I'm sorry Belle. Shaking his head, I understand goddess, with his head down, what do I do now? Looking at her. Hesja. Now, taking a deep breath, be a responsible father. Take care of your daughter, love your daughter, spoil her, correct her, teach her, and educate her. You understand, pointing it out. Hi Kami-sama. Motivated. Hesja. Fine. Now what to do with Harhime? It would be. With Harhime. Tilts his head. Hesja. Hey Belle-kun, shaking his head. What's wrong? Looking at Hesja. Hesja. You're too innocent to realize, shaking her head, Harhime is in love with you, Chibi, and many more, sighing. What is goddess talking about, blushing. Hesja. Belle, you are Harhime's hero. In her eyes, you were the one who saved her, and it was thanks to you that she can live her life and meet Sayumi. Tell me, what would you do with her feelings? Raising an eyebrow. What will I do? I don't know what to feel now, lowering his head. Hesja. Why don't you get to know her better? Who knows, maybe you'll feel something more than friendship for her, smiling. I'll try, blushing, with your permission, standing up from the couch. Belle left Hesja's room at a slow pace, still thinking about Hesja's words, while the aforementioned was lying on the floor with a depressive aura. Hesja. Giving advice to the man I love on how to win over another woman is painful Buaya. Comically crying, Belle-kun baka. You have to admit that she's beautiful and those who say that I don't give lol. Belle was walking through the halls of the fireplace mansion still deep in thought. Did Harhime have feelings for him? And did he have feelings for Harhime? The image of Ace came to his mind and he felt a strong admiration towards her, then the image of Harhime giving him a beautiful smile came to him and his cheeks heated up. I think I can try, whispering, blushing, love how confusing, laughing a little, how would Harhime look if she gave me that smile? Thinking. Bel-sama. Bel looked in front of him and was a little surprised to see Harhime walking towards him with the same beautiful smile that was in his thoughts. Harhime tilting her head. Bel. Oh. What a good imagination I have, smiling. Bel reached out his hand and gently stroked Harhime's cheek. Bel. You are beautiful, smiling. Harhime. Yeah. Blushing. Bel. Oh, it's real, chibi. Harhime. Holding her cheeks, blushing, b. Bel. I'm sorry. Running away blushing. Harhime Bel-sama. Extending her hand, he thinks I'm beautiful, smiling. Harhime happily went to the dining room to make dinner while her tail moved happily from side to side, implying how happy Bel's words made her. Idiot. Bang 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 idiot. Bang. Bel was in the meeting room all alone banging his head against the wooden table that already looked a little splintered. Bel. It's like that you see, remembering when she ran away from A's, how stupid I was, I literally touched her and I still hadn't realized, hitting himself again, how embarrassing, blushing. Why? Bel. I know, sighing, what I do Sayumi. Bel looked to his right where there was a white wooden crib with gold touches, Welf had shown off with the crib, it was a normal size for a baby, it had a small blue mattress that somehow Bel was sure was much more comfortable than his goddess's bed, a sliding railing small enough so that the baby couldn't stick her head out and get stuck, the mattress was extremely comfortable but firm, so that the baby wouldn't sink into it, and it had enough space for her to play in the crib. The edges were rounded, other than that it had nothing else, Ermind had told him that he couldn't have a pillow until he was 2, since he would probably suffocate on it, and even at 2 years old, the pillow has to be as flat as possible, and not too soft. By the way, there was also a rabbit stuffed animal there, Ermind had given it to Bel as a gift for the little one, it was completely clean for the baby, although yes, if the baby was going to play with it, Bel or Harhime had to be with the baby at all times, to make sure she didn't get suffocated by the stuffed animal or anything of it. Bel. What do you think? Looking at Sayumi. Sayumi wa. Moving her hands. Bel. A date. Thinking, yes, it could work to get to know her better, smiling, but where? I think I can ask Mikoto-san for help on this, nodding. Sayumi wa. Head tilted. Bel. Why am I talking about this with a baby, laughing? Sayumi didn't understand Bel at all, but seeing her father laugh made her happy and she started laughing, extending her hands towards her father. Bel. I'll carry you, smiling. Bel stood up from the chair and moved the railing, smiling when he saw that Welf had made sure of every detail. The lock was made so that the baby could not open the railing in any way. Bel took the baby in his arms and began to rock her while still deep in thought. Bel. Okay, now there's just one problem, sighing, what do we do with you, looking at her, can I bring you to the date or not? Thinking, it's supposed to be so we can get to know each other better, but if I take you, we'd have to be totally attentive to you, and what if we have a picnic instead? Thinking. Sayumi Bua. Cuddling up to Bel. Bel. Yes, I think it's better if we take you, thinking. Ara. I see you've been taking responsibility well, Bel-san. Bel. Turning to look. Bel looked slightly surprised at Ermind who was standing in front of the living room door in civilian clothes, she had a white skirt and a purple blouse. Bel Ermid-san. Surprised. Ermid. Hello, expressionless. Bel. What's Ermid-san doing here? Curious. Ermid. I came to see how things are going with the baby, expressionless, and Harhime-san. Looking around. Bel. Oh, she's making dinner, smiling, thank you very much for your advice Ermid-san, smiling. Ermid. You look like a happy rabbit when you smile, have they told you that? Expressionless. Bel. Many times, smiling nervously, a question Ermid-san, looking at her. Ermid. Let me guess, you want to ask Harhime out on a date and you don't know what to do with the baby, chibi. Bel. I won't ask how you know, but yes, what do I do? Looking at her. Ermid. Well, it's a better option not to leave the baby, she also needs to get used to being away from you, approaching Bel. Give her to me, extending her arms. Bel with clear doubts on his face, handed the baby to Ermid who seemed to glow somehow. Ermid carried the baby in her arms and began to rock her with great care while a smile appeared on her face. Bel. Do you like babies? Head tilted. Ermid. I've always liked them, they're adorable and pure, looking at Bel, how about if on the day of your date I take care of her, expressionless. Bel. How direct, you can see how you want to take care of her, laughing. Ermind. If you laugh, don't take care of yourself, chibi. Bel. P sorry, nervous, so. Ermind. Yes, I can take care of her, I can ask for a day off after all, looking at Bel. Bel. Are you sure? I wouldn't want to take away your day off, unsure. Never mind. Yes, anyway I have nothing more interesting to do and I love babies, so it's a good way to waste my time, looking at Sayumi. Sayumi. Ha. Writhing. Belle. Calm down, smiling. Airmid simply watched as Belle approached and gave a charming smile to Sayumi who, upon smelling his scent, looked in his direction and as soon as she saw him she calmed down. Airmid. Give me your jacket, expressionless. Belle. Confused. Never mind. Give me your jacket, Chibi. Belle hi. Belle took off his brown jacket and gave it to Airmid who asked him to move away. Belle. Huh. It's okay, walking away. Sayumi, seeing Belle walk away again, started to complain and kick. Airmid put the jacket on Sayumi and she immediately calmed down. Belle. Huh. What happened? Head tilted. Airmid. She's used to your smell, looking at Belle, you always wear your jacket and it smells like you, looking at Belle. Belle. Thank you very much, Airmid-san. Bowing, everything for the baby is in that closet over there, pointing to one as she walked toward the door, if she accepts the appointment, I'll tell you the day you have to take care of her. For now, take care of her while I prepare everything necessary. Bye. Exiting. Airmid. Looking at the baby. Sayumi. Wah. Tilting head. Airmid. You have a good father, I would love to have someone like that as a boyfriend, sitting on the couch, shall we play? Smiling a little. Makoto. What does Harhime like? Tilts her head. L. H. High, blushing, lowering his head, was planning to ask her on a D-date, smiling embarrassedly. Makoto Kaiaya. Hugging Belle, I'm so happy Belle Dono. Happy, Harhime will immediately accept. Smiling. L. Why you think? Smiling. Makoto. Sure. Smiling, but how do you plan to make the appointment? Looking at Belle. L. Well, I was planning to take her to a place she'd like and get to know each other better, you know, scratching his neck, and I wanted to give her a gift, lowering his head, blushing. Makoto. Well, there are several things that Harhime likes, but you can give her her favorite sweets and a gift, she'll love anything, but if you want my opinion, how about a necklace? Smiling. L. Ah, necklace. Thinking. Makoto. Yes. Hitting her fist against her palm, I know. Do you know what Harhime's favorite story is? Looking at Belle. L. H. High, she told me about it when we first met, it was one where a princess is imprisoned in a dark forest by her own parents, and a beautiful prince faces several challenges and difficulties just to save her and become her hero, thinking, she said it was the first story she read in her favorite, why do you ask? Looking at Makoto. Makoto. Okay, you know her favorite story, now, do you remember if she mentioned that the prince gave a beautiful sky blue necklace to the princess, a beautiful blue color as bright as the princess's eyes, with the words together forever written on it, smiling. LHO. Getting the idea. Makoto. Exactly. With a sparkle in her eyes, you can give Harhime Dono a necklace just like her favorite story, but. L. Let it be the same color as Harhime's eyes. Snapping his fingers. Makoto. Exactly. Smiling, you can go to the Tower of Babel to have the necklace made. There are not only high-quality blacksmiths, but also artisans and goldsmiths. Smiling. Attention. Useless data equals goldsmith is the name of people who are dedicated to creating jewelry or working with precious stones. Thank you for your attention. L. Can't Welf do it? Looking at Makoto. Makoto. You want the necklace to be all broken, raising an eyebrow. LN no. Makoto. Don't confuse metal with precious stones, they are even harder to handle than metal, now go and have a beautiful necklace made for Harhime, hitting her back. L. High. Running out of the room, Iido. Coming back. Makoto. Raising an eyebrow. L. I have a problem with money, laughing nervously, the baby's things cost a little more than I imagined, laughing foolishly. Makoto. Here. Giving her a bag of Valis. L. Surprised. L looked at the whole bag and using his 3 neurons he started counting. L. This is almost 3 million Valis. In shock. Makoto. Use it. It would be. L. B but it's your money, nervous. Makoto. Don't worry. Half of him is wealth. Giving a thumbs up. L. That doesn't calm me down. Makoto. Go give him a necklace. Plop. L. That was not necessary. Plop. Makoto. What's your priority now? L. It's Ayumi. With a red cheek. Plop. Makoto. That's right, but you have to buy the necklace too, so use that money. L. Understood. Plop. L. And why is that? With red cheeks. Plop. Makoto. So you don't forget. Kicking him out of the fireplace. Sighing, fine, I'll go buy the necklace, going towards the Tower of Babel. Bell was walking through the streets of Happy Hour while looking at a beautiful box he had in his hands. Inside that box came a beautiful silver necklace with an emerald hanging from it. The most striking thing were the words written in gold with the words together forever. Yes, very cheesy, but perfect for the woman he was going to give it to. Bell had gotten it 5 minutes after he ordered it. Why? Simple. When he went to the goldsmith to have the necklace made, someone had apparently already placed an order exactly like the one he had, with the only difference being that he wanted the words in silver, not gold. The necklace was already made, now Bell only had to pay for it and then pay for it to be given to him and not to the girl who asked for it. Apparently she was an Amazon. Bell felt a little sorry for her, but there was no way around it. He had to pay $500,000 for the necklace, then he had to pay another 20,000 valis to get the necklace, something expensive but valid. And Babel. Like they gave my necklace to someone else. Employee. I'm sorry, Miss Tiona, but since you arrived 3 hours late, we gave it to someone else, trembling. Tiona. But I paid for it, angry. Man. The boy also paid for the necklace and gave an extra payment so that we would give it to him and not to you. I'm sorry, Miss Tiona, scared. Bell. Damn, frustrated, Makoto said that I should buy her favorite sweets, but first of all, how do I get sweets from the Far East, and secondly, what are her favorite sweets? Frustrated, I forgot to ask Makoto-san, sighing. Ara. It seems you have problems, kid. Bell. Aisha-san. Surprised. Aisha. What's wrong, kid? Your frustration is visible from afar, smiling. Bell. Two wanted to invite Harhime on a date, blushing. Aisha. Oh. Happy. Bell blushed harder as he felt Aisha hugging his neck and pressing him to her breasts. Aisha. That's good news, bunny, but why so frustrated? Smiling. Bell. I wanted to give him a gift and I already got it, but I also wanted to give him some candy that he'd like or something, but I don't know what his favorite candy is, and I don't think they sell them here either, scratching his cheek. Aisha. Oh. I'm glad I have this, giving her a bag. L.A. Taking the bag. Elle opened the bag, surprised to see some small circle-shaped sweets with several small spikes on it. Aisha. They are sweets from the east, smiling. I don't know if they are Harhime's favorites, but they are the ones you can give her, leaving, goodbye little rabbit. Elle. Thank you very much, Aisha-san. Bowing. Makoto. Ready. It would be. Elle. Ready. Hitting his cheeks. Plop. Ermid. Are you ready? Expressionless. Bell. That wasn't necessary, and I'm droplet. Makoto and Ermid pushed Bell out of the meeting room, giving him a thumbs up, and slammed the door shut. Bell. Will they be, sighing, now where is Harhime? Thought. Were you looking for me, Bell-sama? Bellie. Bell looked in front of him, surprised to see Harhime looking at him with curiosity and a small blush on her cheeks. Bell also blushed a little and cleared his throat. Bell. Harhime saw Harhime, blushing. Bell blushed for calling Harhime out on her first name. If Juan had called her that before, it was only for serious matters or when he wasn't with her. Harhime was also slightly surprised by the lack of san and looked closely at Bell, unable to prevent her tail from moving a little. Bell. Why you would like to, blushing more. Harhime also blushed more and looked impatiently at Bell, waiting for him to finish his sentence. Bell. Why you wish, sweating nervously. Harhime. Yes. With a sparkle in her eyes. Bell. Would you like to go on a date with me? Closing his eyes. End. The quote, 06. Bell was in his room nervous, next to him were Welf and Auka looking at him with pride and helping him dress elegantly. Bell. I have a question, nervous. Isn't it better to go somewhere casual for a first date? Confused. Welf. What a stupid thing to say, Bell. Shaking him, you have to give the best to your date and a dinner at the best restaurant in Orario is a good idea. Besides, you got those sweets, right? That would be like something casual. Nodding proudly. It just hurts me a little that you didn't choose me to make your necklace, but I understand that I'm not the best when it comes to jewelry. Sighing. Bell sighed but grimaced slightly in annoyance when Auka squeezed something wide around his neck. Auka. Ready, Bell-san, giving him a thumbs up. Bell looked at a white dress that looked expensive with simple words so that she would be elegant and presentable, reason. Simple, Harhime had accepted the date and they had agreed that it would be serious in a few days at a luxurious restaurant, although Harhime did not know that. But to not take away the excitement, let me tell you a little about what happened. Flashback. Bell-sama was looking for me. Bellie. Bell looked in front of him, surprised to see Harhime looking at him with curiosity and a small blush on her cheeks. Bell also blushed a little and cleared his throat. Bell. Harhime saw, Harhime, blushing. Bell blushed for calling Harhime by her first name, although he had called her that before, it was only for serious matters or when he wasn't with her. Harhime was also slightly surprised by the lack of sand and looked closely at Belle, unable to prevent her tail from wagging a little in excitement. Belle. Why you would like to, blushing more. Harhime also blushed more and looked impatiently at Belle, waiting for him to finish his sentence. Belle. Why you wish, sweating nervously. Harhime. Yes. With a sparkle in her eyes. Belle. Would you like to go on a date with me? Closing his eyes. Harhime processed the question for a few seconds before a huge blush adorned her cheeks and she tried to hide her face in vain. Harhime. Why you want to go on a date with me, Belle-sama? Shy. LH high. Nervous. Harhime looked at the nervous Belle, who seemed to sweat bullets, and gave an adorable smile that would defeat battalions and melt the hearts of the coldest men. Harhime. I would love to, Belle, smiling shyly. Belle blushed even more and they both remained silent in an awkward silence. Belle. Well, the date will be this Friday, just the two of us. Looking away, Hermid said she will take care of the baby for us so we can trust her and go calmly, mumbling. No one heard Belle's murmurs, no one except Harhime, who with her sharp hearing could hear the words and nodded, happy to have a date with her hero. Her tail reflected how happy she was as it moved happily, while her ears couldn't help but move a little from how excited she was. Although shame flooded both when Belle looked at Lily, Hestia and Welf behind Harhime hiding, giving her a thumbs up with a chibi face. They had talked about Belle and Harhime's relationship and had accepted it. Lily was the hardest to convince, but in the end she also accepted it, and surprisingly Hestia was the one who took it the best. It seems that she was finally maturing, and now that there was a little girl in the house, she had to act like a goddess worthy of this title and be an example to follow, so as goddess of the home she would support Belle with her family without hesitation for a second. But leaving that aside and returning to the young parents, the image of Lily, Hestia and Welf, giving an embarrassed thumbs up to Belle, while Harhime also blushed upon seeing that hidden behind a door were Makoto and Aisha, giving her a look of approval and luck. Well, Aisha was doing this Illinois in a mocking way, making Harhime blush more, who understood perfectly what she meant. Then flashback. Belle. Are you sure this fits me? Unsure. Welf. Of course. Raising his fist. Auka. It suits you, Belle-san, smiling approvingly. Belle had an elegant crimson suit, black dress shoes, a jet black long-sleeved shirt and a white tie, striking in his words, but he had to admit that he looked incredible. Besides that, the suit was somewhat tight, letting his already trained body of a level 3 stand out a little. NT. To give you an idea, just remember that he has the white tie and the black shirt, obviously without the watch. Belle. It's comfortable, looking from head to toe. Welf. It was made by me, smiling proudly. It is made of a very resistant and fireproof fabric. Also inside the suit, it has a knife holder just in case and a small pocket for potions in case. Belle. Welf, sweating, it's just a date, I don't want to be a gangster, and I'm Droplet. Welf. Oh right, sorry, it's customary that my armor doesn't last you even a month, laughing stupidly. Belle. Wait, did you say a potion pod? Raising an eyebrow. Welf and Auka looked at him for a second before each taking out a potion. Auka red one and Welf a pink one. Auka. If that happens, you can use this to improve things, giving the red potion to Belle. Welf. And if you end up using that one, also use this one so you don't become the father of 2 children, giving him the pink potion. LA. Not understanding. Welf. What are you doing here? It's almost time for your date, idiot. Go away. Kicking him out. Welf and Auka carried Belle to the entrance of the fireplace mansion and left him there at the door. Closing his eyes, although it opened again and revealed Welf. Welf. And don't come back without bringing good news. Closing the door again. Belle sighed and got up from the floor, cleaning his suit in case it got dirty, although it didn't have a single stain, courtesy of him always being hot v. Belle. Don't buck with me. Belle was in front of the fountain in the Love District, thinking about how to torture Welf and Auka after their date. Both men had tricked him, and to avoid the topic they said that the date was about to start, which alarmed Belle and ran to the meeting point. He was very surprised to see a clock in one of the many buildings and see that there was still an hour and a half until his date. Belle. I'll just wait, sitting on the fountain. Belle waited and waited for an hour until finally there were only 30 minutes left. People or in general, the couples who passed by looked at him with pity. For them this was the image of a young man who had been stood up, although it was not true, simply Belle had arrived very early for his date. He hadn't even had time to buy some flowers, and while he was waiting, it didn't occur to him to buy them, without a doubt the image of someone who has never had a date. Belle was looking at the moon with boredom. It was around 8 o'clock, and there were about 30 left until Harhime arrived, but I don't know, I expect that a group of girls will suddenly approach him. Ara. What's a cute boy like you doing here alone? Belle. I'm waiting for my date, scratching his neck. How cute. It looks like a bunny, right? If it's cute enough, why don't you come with us? L. I can't, I'm waiting for someone, nervous. Come on. You've been here for an hour and no one has come, maybe they stood you up, don't be shy. Elle blushed and looked away when the black-haired woman grabbed his arm and pulled it by force. Normally a normal person couldn't move it being a level 3 with extra auxilia, but the woman used her 2 charms, sticking them to the arm of an embarrassed Belle to distract him. Elle. I can't really, sweating nervously. He blushed. How beautiful. Come on, come on. Elle didn't know what to do. For anyone else there were 2 options, take advantage of the situation and leave with the girls or ask them to leave him alone and continue waiting. Now the problem was Belle's heart of gold. His grandfather, no matter how perverted he was, had taught him to always be polite and kind to a girl, so that ruled out the option of rejecting them, but he also taught him not to leave a young lady hanging, so that also ruled out the option of going with them. Inside Belle, 3 little Belles were running in nervous circles, not knowing what to do in this situation. But just before Belle could speak, a blade-like arm descended, forcibly separating the girl and Belle. Everyone looked at the person who had separated Belle and the black-haired girl slightly surprised. There was a beautiful Renard with golden hair and emerald eyes with a curiously crimson dress of the same tone as Belle. She looked serious, very serious for the taste of the girls who were flirting with Belle. But before anyone could say anything, Harhime grabbed Belle by the arm in the same way as the black-haired girl and took him away, pouting slightly, sending him a cold look that would freeze the heart of any one of the girls. And while Harhime walked dragging Belle, he thought about what the hell just happened. Belle. Grandpa always told me stories about heroes and sometimes romantic ones to teach me how to treat a girl, and this is so cliché, but I don't know how to assume it was the other way around. Nervous, Harhime, blushing. Harhime didn't reply and just continued walking with a cute pout on her face, while her ears were raised defensively and her tail was slightly wrapped around Bella's protection. L. I am sorry if I made you angry, nervous. Harhime. Why didn't you reject them? Looking away. L. I didn't know how to do it without sounding rude, Gamenesai, bowing slightly. Harhime looked at him out of the corner of her eye before blushing and hugging him, although Belle was a little taller than Harhime, so he looked adorable in the eyes of many. Harhime. Why you're mine. Blushing. Elle was surprised and an intense reddish color came to his face. He slowly looked down at Harhime, who had her face buried in his chest to hide her intense blush. Elle also hugged Harhime and looked away as the intense red color on her cheeks only seemed to increase. They both stayed like that for a while, until they finally decided to separate and looked at each other embarrassed. Elle, let's go. Trying to stay calm. Harhime nodded still blushing, and both began to walk with no apparent direction. Harhime blushed as she looked at Belle's hand and extended it slightly to hold it, but at the last second she got embarrassed and withdrew her hand, although she didn't know what she expected that out of nowhere a hand a little bigger than hers took it and a warm feeling filled her. Harhime also looked to see an embarrassed Belle who continued walking with his eyes forward without saying anything. Harhime smiled slightly and walked next to him now holding hands, while her tail slowly swayed happily. Elsewhere. The Twilight Mansion was in chaos. There were several people lying on the ground, unconscious, among them most were beast men, both women and men. While a little far away were Finn, Riveria and Gareth, the 3 with enigma droplets, looked at the unusual scene in front of them. There was Bet, an executive of the family known for being extremely annoying and angry. He was also the person that many of the family hated, since he always made fun of them calling them weak or whatever, but right now that werewolf was in defensive form in front of a small Renard baby who looked at him with curiosity. Bet. Who else? Showing his fangs, no one will come near her, understand? No one. Annoyed. What had happened? Simple, let me tell you from the beginning of all this so you understand. Flashback. Ermid was taking care of the baby, but out of nowhere she was called by her god urgently. Apparently someone from the Loki family was seriously injured and had to go heal her. She went with the baby, since she couldn't leave her with anyone from the fireplace mansion, because no one knew how to take care of a baby, not even Hestia. So when he arrived he was pleasantly surprised to see the sword princess wounded from head to toe on a stretcher. Next to her was a jade-haired woman who sighed a little sadly, although she was surprised to see Ermid arrive with a familiar baby in her arms. Riveria Ermid-san, rising from a stool, please cure her, bowing. Bear mind Riveria, you've taken care of babies before, haven't you? Ticking her head. Riveria. I have experience, why? Confused. Ermid. Take care of her while I heal Ae-san, giving her to the baby. Riveria carried the baby in her arms while she watched as Ermid quickly healed Ace. In a matter of minutes, Ace was as good as new again, leaving aside her literally ruined clothes. Bear mind. What happened to him? Looking at Riveria. Riveria. She saw something she shouldn't have, looking at the baby, and this is her way of distracting herself, going to the dungeon until she falls asleep, sighing. Ermid. It's none of my business, but what did you see? Looking at Riveria. Riveria. To her, rocking the baby. Ermide. Slightly surprised. Riveria. She is the daughter of that white-haired boy and the Renard, and as she watched them strolling with the baby, looking at Ermid. Ermid. She loved Belle-san. Riveria. Correction, she loves Belle, smiling sadly, many of us thought that the feeling was mutual, but it seems that we were wrong, sighing, Ermid-san, you would never lie about your job, right? Ermind. No, with a little pride. Riveria. So can you tell me if she really is your daughter? Looking at Ermind. Ermide. Riveria. There may be a possibility that she is not the daughter of Belle Cranel and the Renard, and simply both are taking care of her, but they are not a couple. If this is so, then Ace still has a chance. Also, no one has ever seen the Renard in Orario. I have asked many people in Orario, and no one has seen her, much less approach Belle. Is it impossible that she has been pregnant with him? I know that in some cases the metabolism of the beast men is more accelerated and their offspring may take longer than normal to be born, or on the contrary, they can be born much earlier than normal, but even so this is a very short time, so it is likely that she is not her mother or father, right? You who are a doctor and very strict with your work, please tell me, is she your daughter? Looking at Ermind. Ermind remained silent for a few seconds before thousands of plans were formulated in his mind in a matter of seconds. Ermid never expected the Sword Princess to have a crush on Belle Cranel, and the feeling was probably mutual before, but given the date Belle was currently having with Harhime, it was possible that he had abandoned those feelings for Sayumi. Once again, Ermid was surprised by Belle's determination to be a father. It was something that was rarely seen, even with a blood father, and she had supported that decision, so she had to keep her word and help Belle in Harhime, even if that meant lying and neglecting her strict work. Ermid. Yes, she is the biological daughter of both, looking at Riveria. Riveria. But, distressed. Ermind. I was present at the birth, looking at Riveria. Riveria. Huh. In shock. Ermid. It is known that the Renard have a unique magic, so only a few people know about this, and all of them swore to keep it a secret, expressionless. Riveria. I understand, lowering her head. Ermid. Now please take care of Sayumi-chan while I finish healing A's. I've already closed her wounds, but she still needs to regenerate her blood. The amount she lost in battle is insane, healing her again. Riveria nodded depressed, she knew that Ermid would never lie about her work, so why distrust her? Everything she had said was true according to her words. A's never had a chance. Riveria shook her head, leaving those thoughts aside and focused on the little girl. She looked exactly like the fusion of Belle and Harhime. She smiled slightly at her and left the infirmary with Sayumi with Ermid's permission. She continued walking through the Twilight Mansion to the library, although she did not realize the two problematic Amazons saw the baby and quickly spread the rumor that the daughter of Belle Cranel, the one who broke the heart of the Sword Princess, was here. What do you mean, the one who broke her heart? Simple, everyone in the family could see how depressed she was, spending even more time in the dungeon than before. She always came back with monster wounds, and it seemed like she didn't care that she was hurt. This continued for a few days until Riveria got fed up and cured her whenever she came back in that state. No one knew why the princess was in that state, but one day while everyone was sleeping, Aki, a level 4 of the family and Catgirl, had gotten up in the night to look for something to drink, and when she passed by Aza's room, she was surprised to hear her crying slightly, while she mumbled and repeated things without sense. Even Aki's fine hearing could not hear exactly what she should, but she could understand something. From all the babbling of the depressed princess she could only hear that, and as she lamented. The next morning throughout the Twilight Mansion there was already a rumor that the Sword Princess had been rejected by the record holder for leveling up. Everyone was obviously upset with him. Hundreds of men had tried to court the Sword Princess, and they were all coldly rejected. And now, after 7 years of hundreds of men trying to court her, a man had rejected her, something that the gods would undoubtedly take care of putting in history. Several people from the Twilight Mansion were upset with Belle. There were very few who simply did nothing and accepted it. Among them were Riveria, Finn, Gareth, Tiona, etc. etc. Finn himself had to stop Loki from challenging Hesja's Familia to a war game and massacring Belle Cranel. But leaving that aside, after everyone in the Twilight Zone found out that Belle Cranel's daughter was here, they went to see her in a rage. Among them was Bet, who didn't want the trash that had hurt Ace to be here. Soon everyone was in the living room looking annoyed at Riveria, who was carrying the baby a little nervously. Riveria. Stop this stupidity already, annoyed. Why are you bringing that bastard's daughter here? You probably knew Ace's heart would be broken and you didn't say anything. And? Everyone started criticizing Riveria, everyone except the elves, who remained silent, not knowing what to say or do. But among all those who complained, one gray-haired werewolf stood out, who seemed extremely irritated when he looked at the baby. Riveria, seeing Bet slowly approaching her, left the baby on the ground and stood in front of her to protect her. Although she knew she was at a disadvantage, she could be a higher level than Bet, but she was a mage, so Bet had an advantage over her. Bet rushed angrily towards Riveria, and she tried to stop him with her cane, although it was useless, and Bet sent her flying with a powerful kick. Now Bet was in front of the girl, breathing heavily with a look of total death. Bet was about to attack the girl before he realized that she was about to cry in fear. Bet's attack stopped at the last second while he remained static, and for the first time his wolf instinct was activated to protect someone. Wolves have an instinct to protect those who cannot defend themselves, especially the young. It is an innate instinct that the whole pack has to take care of the puppies until they reach a certain age, and right now that innate instinct was working in Bet. Bet stood firm in front of the girl before turning around and looking at everyone expressionlessly. A few seconds later his gaze changed to a threatening one as he prepared to fight, showing his claws and fangs. Everyone was surprised. Now it wasn't the baby who was being threatened, no, it was them. But still their anger for the little girl blinded them, and they all rushed to attack her. None of them expected that Bet, with great agility and skill, would literally massacre each and every one of them in a matter of seconds, without allowing them to touch the little Renard, who was now watching the whole conflict with attention, as if it were something entertaining. Soon Riveria stood up from the wall in pain and watched as thousands of adventurers from her family were massacred by a single angry man. "Finn, what's up?" Altered. Finn and Gareth suddenly appeared, and both looked at the scene with a drop of sweat. Bet looked hysterical while attacking left and right all the beast men, humans, Palom, dwarves and some other elves that attacked him. And so we come to this situation. Finn flashed back. Bet continued to slaughter family members, while the few who did nothing were hiding in terror watching the massacre. Determined. The three executives looked at Ermid, who looked a little tired before becoming excited when they saw the baby clapping in amusement, while Bet continued to cry. Ermid? What happened? Excited. Riveria. Well, many hate the Hestia family and Cranel's daughter, so many tried to attack her, but Bet protected him, although it is not why if at first he was the one who was going to attack her. Ermid. I see, sighing, well that's due to your instinct. I would give you a more detailed explanation, but now I have something more important to do, going towards Sayumi. Bet. Do you want to die too? Smiling sadistically. Ermid looked at the wolf in front of her expressionlessly before giving it a very quick blow to the neck that seemed to do nothing to Bet. Bet, you're thinking of attacking me when you're so weak. Raising your fist, you'll see her. Bet couldn't think much when he suddenly fell to the ground and ended up fainting, sleeping like a baby. Ermid calmly carried the baby and left the Twilight Mansion in silence, thanking Riveria for helping her and asking her to take care of the princess who was now cured. Finn. Riveria. Bet will be ashamed when he finds out he was defeated in one blow, unable to hold back his laughter. Aerith. Haha. That sounds entertaining. I can't imagine how he reacted when he heard it, entertaining. Finn. Okay, but now what do we do about the other stuff? Expressively, don't let Ace find out that Belsen's daughter was here. That'll make her feel worse than she already does. He goes to his office. Riveria and Gareth went their separate ways, knowing that there was no way Ace was going to find out about this. Elle had a drop of sweat while Harhime had her mouth slightly open, looking forward. There in front of them was a giant and very large building. It was only a little smaller than Ganesha's house, and that was saying a lot. At the entrance it had written the Silver Leaf, a famous restaurant with an extremely expensive schedule and first-class food, something perfect for a special occasion. Elle. What the hell, Welf? How did you get a reservation for this place? Shocked. Harhime. How did you get a reservation for this place? Bel-sama, surprised. Elle. Huh. I have my ways, looking away, now that I realize, glancing at Harhime. Harhime noticed Belle's gaze and blushed when she noticed that he was staring at her, although she also stared at him, noticing his slightly tight suit, highlighting his muscles. NT. This is Harhime's dress, a gift from Makoto and Aisha. L. W. Well, looking away, shall we go in? Smiling shyly. Harhime nodded, blushing, and handed her arm to Belle's, being received by the receptionist. Receptionist. Do you have a reservation? Elegant. Bella, name of Belle Cranel, a little nervous. The man immediately looked at a folder for a few seconds before nodding. Receptionist. Mr. Cranel has a reservation for 8:30, can you come in? Letting them in. Both were led by a girl dressed in a black suit to one of the many tables there, although there was at least a distance of 3 meters between each table, apparently to provide privacy. The waitress left them alone, but not before leaving them some menus of the food that they could offer to the young couple. Both young men stood in awkward silence looking at the menu until the waitress came to take their orders. They both ordered what they thought was best and the waitress left, leaving the awkward silence again. Belle Harhime. Hey, sorry, you speak first, not you. They both started laughing lightly and Harhime spoke. Harhime. Thank you for inviting me on the date Bel-sama, shy. Bel. And no, thank you for coming, scratching his neck, are you enjoying your stay with the Hestia family? Smiling. Harhime. Yes, happy, since I arrived at the Hestia family everyone has treated me well, although I still have problems doing my homework, depressed. Bel. You don't have to do everything alone Harhime-san, we all said that we would share the tasks, and Kami-sama can teach you how to cook, me too, smiling, I'm not the best, but I know some things, shy. Harhime. I would love to, Bel-sama, smiling. Bel. You don't have to call me by Sama, embarrassed, just call me Bel, smiling. Harhime. T then, looking away, you also call me by my name Bel, smiling. Bel nodded happily, and both young men watched as the waitress arrived with their respective dishes. They both started eating, drinking some wine that the waitress brought. Surprisingly, they both tolerated alcohol better than they imagined. The dinner was quiet, talking about casual things and occasionally about Sayumi. They were the youngest in the restaurant, so they were mostly the center of attention, giving them discreet glances that both young people did not even notice as they were so focused on each other while they talked and ate. It was a beautiful evening in the words of both. Harhime was slightly surprised when Bel took out a small bag and gave it to her timidly. She opened the bag revealing several sweets from the Far East. Harhime smiled at Bel and shared some of the sweets with him. They both put their chairs together and started eating them. Bel. They're delicious. Smiling. Harhime blushed and took one of the sweets before extending it towards Bel's mouth. Harhime spreading the candy. Bel was also embarrassed and opened his mouth. Bel eating the candy, now you, spreading the candy. Harhime smiled happily and opened her mouth happily eating the sweet. Bel smiled too, and they continued with their beautiful evening. Time skip. Bel and Harhime were walking through the streets of the Love District very close together, both took a short walk, seeing the streets full of people who were in the same ones as them enjoying their dates. They continued walking quietly until they reached the fireplace mansion and entered silently, noticing that the lights were off, implying that everyone was already asleep. They both went to the doors of their rooms that were next door at Hestia's request, who thought it was best for them to take good care of the baby. Bel. Well, shy, I hope you enjoyed the date Harhime, scratching the back of his neck. Harhime. I loved Bel, smiling. Bel. Right, taking a box out of his suit, I wanted to give you a gift, extending it, I hope you like it, smiling shyly. Harhime. Gift. Happy. Harhime opened the small box looking surprised at a beautiful silver necklace with an emerald hanging from it, the most striking thing were the words written in gold with the words together forever. Harhime. This necklace, surprised. Bel. I hope you like it, smiling. Harhime. I love it. Hugging him. Bel blushed slightly and reciprocated the hug, unable to help but sniff Harhime's hair a little, relaxing at the fresh and sweet smell that Harhime gave off. Harhime. Why would you mind? Extending the necklace. Bel immediately understood what she meant and held the necklace carefully. Harhime turned around and moved her hair aside, letting Bel put the necklace on her. Once Bel put it on, Harhime turned to him, holding the emerald necklace with a charming smile. Now she had her most precious gift in her hands. Although Bel had given her something, in the end she couldn't give him anything, so in her head, she came up with a way to reward him. Harhime. By the way, look over there, pointing behind Bel. Bel. What thing? Looking behind him, I don't see anything, turning to look at Harhime. Muik. Bel opened his eyes in shock as he felt Harhime's lips crash into his own in a soft clumsy kiss. Harhime had her eyes closed embarrassed and then opened them surprised to see that she was kissing Bel on the lips and not on the cheek. Bel was the same as her with his eyes wide open, not knowing what to do until Harhime separated. Harhime. I'm sorry I wanted to kiss you on the lips and I didn't, nervous. Harhime opened her eyes in shock and her tail twitched as she felt her lips being caught by a soft and clumsy kiss from Bel. She closed her eyes and they continued kissing for a few minutes until the lack of oxygen made her lack of presence and they had to separate. They both looked into each other's blushing eyes, although Harhime couldn't hide a silly smile on her face, while Bel seemed somehow much happier than usual. Harhime. I'll see you tomorrow. Entering her room. Bel stood in the hallway alone before raising and lowering his arm in victory and going to his room happy. And. Happy Mother's Day, special. NT. I know I should have uploaded it yesterday, but I fell asleep sorry XD, there will be spoilers. V. Orario, right now it was Mother's Day, a special day in which you could show your mother all the love and appreciation you have for her. A peaceful day where you can spend time with your mother, yep, a peaceful day. That out of the way. We have to get there fast. Or at least for a moment, on the busy streets of Orario people were spending the day with their mothers and pampering them as if they were a queen herself. But between those busy streets two people were running, or one was on top of the first. There was a white-haired man with red eyes who looked approximately 20 years old. He ran through the streets of Orario at an abnormal speed worthy of his title as the White Flash. That man was the legendary Cranel, captain of the prestigious Hestia family and level 9 adventurer. On his shoulders was a beautiful 6-year-old girl with golden hair and ruby red eyes who looked alarmed. She had a red kimono very similar to that of a certain Renard much older than her. In her hands there were some chocolates, a photo, and a letter. The name of that little girl was Sayumi Cranel, better known as the famous daughter of Cranel, the hero of Orario, the princess of Orario in simple words. Both were alarmed, searching like crazy for a gift. The reason? They couldn't find a gift for their mother-wife. Harhime Cranel, the famous Kitsune no Kami level 4 and high executive of the Hestia family, a beautiful Renard woman considered one of the most beautiful women on par with the ancient goddesses of beauty, Freya and Ishtar, being even superior to the late princess of the sword, who years ago had sacrificed herself to save the current princess Renard from an attack by the ancient king Otter some years ago. But that's something from the past you're not interested in knowing, right? Haha, I know it is, but you'll have to finish the story, and I'll have to keep updating if you want to see the outcome of this story. Belle stopped walking out of nowhere and looked at a store where they sold items and jewelry for women. Belle quickly entered the store with a dizzy Sayumi who moved her ears listening to people's conversations. Do you think this is perfect? I say mom will like it. Look at this perfume. It smells good, I'm sure mom will love it. Sayumi saw the articles that the girls and boys of the place were talking about, just like Belle, who with his affiliated level 9 senses, could hear everything with great ease. Belle. Hello, excuse me. Employee. See Cranel-sama, blushing, what do you want, looking at him. Belle. He, scratching his neck. Sayumi pouted and in an adorable voice said to her father. Sayumi. Concentrate on the mission, Odo-san baka. Hitting her head. Belle. Sorry, laughing nervously. For Sayumi it was normal to see thousands of women trying to court her father, and it was not for nothing. Not only was he a hero for everyone, but he was incredibly handsome. So many girls went after him. The scar on his right eye did not help much, it only made him look more masculine. Belle smiled kindly at the lady before placing his order alongside Sayumi, who was planning to buy her own gift for her beloved Oka-san. Time skip. The beautiful Renard wearing a white kimono with gold details walked through the mansion fireplace, receiving greetings from her family's dependents. Next to her were Makoto, Chigusa and Aisha walking quietly. Makoto. And Belle don't know. Confused. Harhime. He and Seiyu went out for a moment to look for something, smiling. Chigusa. What could it be? Looking at Harhime. Aisha. Who knows, maybe it was because of contraception. Harhime Aisha-sama, looking away blushing. Aisha. Oh come on Harhime, you're not that innocent girl you used to be, and your rabbit was the one who took your virginity, playing it down. Harhime looked everywhere blushing, mainly because they were still in public and in front of the other members of her family. But it was true, she and Belle were no longer virgins. That happened a little after they became boyfriend and girlfriend when Sayumi was barely about to turn 1 year old, and Aisha knew from Harhime and Belle's own words that despite being shy, they were both beasts in bed, and even worse, when Harhime entered her first heat after turning 17, Belle really had to use a wheelchair for a while the Hestia family, which at that time was still small, had to use earplugs to sleep because otherwise they would spend their time listening to moans until dawn, something that had happened a few times. Harhime was going to say something to Aisha if it weren't for the fact that at the speed of lightning someone took her in his arms and ran away. Everyone knew who it was her husband. Aisha looked amused, as in the place where Harhime had been there was a small letter with the words. I'll take it. That's Belle. Aisha. Hahaha. Smiling, I'll go get earplugs, leaving. Makoto blushed and discreetly followed Aisha. Although Harhime and Belle's room had a silencer, those sleeping around could still hear slight sounds, and who were those around them? Well, her, Hestia Lily and Welf, who was currently in his late mother's grave next to Hephaestus. Harhime was surprised and slightly blushed to see that her husband had carried her in his arms again in front of everyone, although no one could see it perfectly, since everything happened in less than a second. Harhime. Honey, blushing. Belle. Hello Haim, smiling. Sayumi came out behind her father's head happily. Sayumi Oka-san. Cheerful. Harhime. Hello Seiyu, smiling. Belle. Ready for your day, my lady. Smiling. Harhime. Delighted, happy. Belle smiled as he saw his wife's tail waving happily and increased his speed, arriving in a matter of seconds at a nice meadow where there was a picnic basket and a tablecloth. There was a blue monster girl, Azino. Sayumi welcomed One-chan. Running to hug her. Wiene. Hello Sayumi, smiling, although I think the one you should hug is not me, smiling. Belle let Harhime get off his arms before the three of them stared at her. Harhime. What's wrong? Nervous. Everyone smiled before rushing forward and hugging Harhime. Happy Mother's Day. Harhime smiled brightly before hugging everyone with great affection. Harhime. Thank you all, smiling, I really love you, kissing Sayumi on the head. Sayumi smiled at her mother fondly and everyone quickly began giving her gifts. Elle gave her a white ring in the shape of a rabbit and a fox, something that Harhime thanked with a kiss on the lips. Sayumi took out a perfume of a light pink tone and gave it to her mother, with her tail wagging happily without holding back the excitement. Harhime became unco and looked at her daughter who looked anxious. Harhime. I loved it, it smells good, right? Smiling. Everyone nodded and Sayumi hugged her mother lovingly. Wiene took out a large box and placed it in front of Harhime with pride. She opened the box revealing a beautiful strawberry cake for Harhime. Wiene hugged Harhime just like Sayumi and they all started to live together while they ate it and laughed happily. Elle. Happy Mother's Day, darling, smiling. Harhime. Thanks, smiling. Elle blushed slightly and looked away when he saw his lovely wife smiling at him, no matter how long he looked back it still made him blush. Harhime also blushed before smiling and giving Belle a soft kiss. Harhime. You earned it, laughing lightly. Elle was silent, staring into space with a goofy smile on his face. They were definitely a happy couple. Sayumi. Hey. How disgusting. Looking away. Wiene. Don't look. Covering her eyes. Elle and Harhime laughed lightly at this, they weren't just a happy couple, they were a happy family. And. Extra. Estja was blushing in her bed, covering her ears with her pillow. Reason. Simple. Belle. Harhime. Honey, you're motivated today sorry I couldn't help myself. Don't worry I love it when you get like that Harhime Estja covered her ears resisting the temptation to do two things, one go and yell at them to shut up, two masturbate, she was really tempted to do both. Although in another guest room was a certain Amazon was masturbating without shame, hearing the moans of Belle and Harhime who were in the act and would probably continue for a long time. With the couple. Harhime was on the bed face down, while Belle was on top of her penetrating her intimacy with pleasure. Harhime moaned non-stop as she felt Belle's member entering and exiting the depths of her like almost every night. They both continued moaning with pleasure until they finally reached climax. Harhime Belle Belle. I'm coming. Harhime moaned with pleasure as she felt something thick and hot flutter inside, while Belle smiled with pleasure as he felt his wife's insides tighten and cover his member with her juices. Harhime. Does a second round sound like love to you? Smiling flirtatiously. Belle. I would love to, kissing her. Belle and Harhime were about to resume their action if it weren't for the door opening out of nowhere. Mom. Dad. Belle and Harhime were shocked to see in front of them as the door opened revealing a little 6-year-old girl in bunny print pajamas while carrying a rabbit plushie. Sayumi. I found my furry. Hey, what are you doing? Tilts her head. Sayumi was confused to see her father on top of her mother, naked and panting sweaty, with a blanket covering them from the waist down. Belle. Did you find it? Nervous, that's great, daughter, nervous. Harhime. See honey, you should go to sleep now that you found it, blushing. Sayumi. Are you okay? Worried, I heard screams in here, looking at them. Harhime and Belle blushed even harder upon learning that their daughter had heard their moans. Belle. And don't worry, we're fine, scratching the back of his neck. Sayumi. And what are you doing? Happy. Harhime smiles. Belle. Are we playing? Looking at Harhime. Harhime. Playing wrestling. Blushing. Sayumi. Processing, can I play? Smiling. No. Sayumi. I just asked, lowering her head. Aisha was laughing out loud at the embarrassed Belle who was cleaning the room to hide his blush while Harhime was in front of her and the others dejected. Extend. A normal day, 07. The happy Harhime was walking through the halls of the fireplace mansion thinking about last night's events, her tail moving from side to side showing her great happiness. As she walked to the main room she hummed a beautiful melody she memorized from Belle. A few seconds later she arrived at the main room and opened the door finding a scene weird. Funny. There piled up were Lily, Belle, Mikoto and Hestja all completely defeated. Belle was face down being the one who carried the others, on top of him was Hestja, Mikoto, and finally Lily, far from them was Well lying on the floor with a dirty diaper on his head. Harhime felt sorry. And a few feet away was Ermid sleeping peacefully on the couch with Belle's jacket covering her. Is that so? Sitting on top of them all was the baby, happily playing with a stuffed bunny. Harhime timidly approached the pile of half-dead and picked up the baby. Harhime. What happened to them? Nervous. Harhime didn't get a response for a few seconds, when she thought everyone was fainted surprisingly Belle spoke. Belle. Harhime. Looking up. Harhime Belle. Crouching down, what happened? Caressing her cheek. Belle gave a goofy smile at Harhime's caresses before sighing in defeat and looking at Harhime. Belle? Well. Flashback. The half-asleep Belle was walking through the halls of Twilight Mansion in the early morning. Belle walked to the main room, bumping into walls or furniture from time to time, until he finally reached the main room and opened the door. Although he remained static when he saw Ermid sitting on the sofa holding the baby with large dark circles under her eyes. Belle Ermid-san, nervous. Ermid turned to look at Belle in a terrifying way before speaking. Ermid. I think I'm starting to regret it, looking at Belle. Belle a low moan, scratching the back of his neck. Mind. Never mind, here, extending to Sayumi. Sayumi. Bah. Bah. Extending her arms to her father. Belle smiled at his daughter and carried her in his arms with affection. Little Sayumi smiled at him and snuggled up to her father before sleeping peacefully. Belle. Were you here all night? And I'm Droplet. Mind looked at Belle before sighing and nodding. Mind. Aisha-san and Makoto-san were also here, they helped me take care of her, right now I think they are in the kitchen making a bottle, but I don't think they know how, and I'm Drop. Belle. I'll go help them, standing up. Mind. Yes, lying down on the couch. Belle had a little bit of an aim when he saw that Ermid had already fallen asleep peacefully, and to be honest, it seemed that she needed a nap, so he let her sleep, but not before covering her with his jacket that was hanging there and went to the kitchen. NT. Don't misunderstand Belle, he doesn't love Ermind in case you doubt that he only has eyes for Harhime and only for Harhime, but he is also a gentleman and now father. With Aisha and Makoto. The kitchen was a mess, Aisha was trying to put out a burning microwave with a bucket full of water, which made everything worse. Makoto was fighting against the fire, a very funny scene, considering that she was waving her katana against the fire to put it out. And so they remained until the kitchen door opened. Belle. Hey, you need help leaving. Aisha. Bunny. Come help us. Belle. Just let me take her to the crib, sighing. Belle Cranel, an adventurer considered a total prodigy and an irregular among adventurers, someone who the rookies looked up to and took an example to follow, a person who had saved many people because of his kind heart. Yes, that same person, right now he was sitting next to Aisha and Makoto looking at the burning kitchen. Belle and Aisha had a wooden stick while roasting marshmallows with the fire, and Makoto was the same only she was using her katana. Belle. And how do we fix this, calm? Aisha. Let's say the microwave exploded, moving the stick. Makoto. But that did happen because of the spoon. Aisha. Let's just say it was a microwave error, chibi. Belle. If anyone asks, I wasn't here, looking at the marshmallow, Aisha. I think it's all ready. Makoto. No. It's not ready yet, would be, you have to wait until it's really golden, would be. Aisha. Belle. Hi. What happened to my kitchen? Makoto, Aisha and Belle started to sweat and look nervously at Hestia who was in shock holding her head. Hestia. Who was it? Belle. Makoto. She, pointing at Aisha. Aisha. Perplexed, hey. Hestia. Aisha. First thing tomorrow morning, I want you to pay me for all the cooking. Aisha. After Belle and Makoto sold Aisha to save their wallets, both with the help of Hestia calmed the fire. Hestia. Back. Raising her arms. Hestia used backspace, the fire retreated. Belle. What? Confused. Belle used confusion. Belle got confused. Makoto. What is this, looking at the screen? Makoto used mind fourth wall broke the fourth wall. Everyone. Author. What? Yeah, sorry. Court. Take 2. Hestia also the embers and to Belle and Makoto's surprise the fire began to quickly go out. Hestia. I'm great, right? Smiling proudly, each god has one or two unique abilities in addition to their arcanum. I have the ability to control fire, among others, crossing her arms. Belle Sugoi, Kami-sama, clapping. Makoto. Worthy of the goddess of the bonfire and the hearth, clapping. Hestia smiled at the compliments before Belle simply walked away while eating his marshmallow. Hestia. Belle-kun, extendiendo su brazo. Belle. Oh yeah, you see, I have to take care of Sayumi. I've already wasted a lot of time here, scratching his cheek. Hestia. I already put out the fire so let's accompany him, looking at Makoto. Makoto. Yeah, that's okay, putting away her katana. Belle was walking with the baby in his arms, being followed by Makoto, Hestia, as well as Lily and Welf, who had seen them on the way and decided to follow them. Belle. Okay, just be quiet, Ermid-san is sleeping, putting a finger on his lips. Everyone nodded and made the same sign of silence that Belle did, all before the sight of Sayumi who looked at them curiously, before raising her finger and making the same sign. Belle. How cute, smiling. Belle carefully opened the door and entered the room calmly. Hermid was still there completely asleep and it seemed like she wasn't going to wake up soon. Belle walked calmly towards the crib and took the rabbit stuffed animal that was there. Belle smiled when he saw how Sayumi extended her little hands to take it and he gave it to her, making Sayumi happy. Everyone else laughed too. Until Lily, ugh. What's that smell? Covering her nose. Makoto. I think I know what it is, with her nose covered. Hestia. It's Belle's responsibility, right? Scratching the back of her neck. Welf. No way, she's your daughter, raising her hands. Belle. Traitors, and I'm tears. Belle was entering the room calmly while sighing in relief. In his arms was Sayumi, already changed and asleep, while they hugged the rabbit stuffed animal. When I enter the room I see how everyone was sitting there talking calmly without disturbing Hermid. Belle noticed how everyone was calmly talking about how it was lucky they wouldn't have to change Sayumi. So he gave an innocent smile before calling Welf. Belle. Welf, smiling. Welf. Oh. Belle. You're here, smiling. Patch. Welf. Welf caught something white in his hands, but suddenly a terrible smell reached him and he almost vomited when he saw the inside of the white thing, which was a diaper. Welfie, this is, in shock. Belle. Would you do me a favor and throw it away? Smiling innocently. Welf. Why me, why? Holding the diaper away from him. Belle. Well, I already changed it, so since you're my friend, you can throw it away, smiling. Welf, ugh, covering his mouth, is fine, dizzy. Welf got up from the couch, receiving pitying looks from the others, and walked to the door to throw away the diaper. But just as he passed Belle, he didn't notice that Belle stood up and tripped. Welf throws the diaper. Everyone watched with wide eyes as the diaper was thrown upwards before curving its trajectory and falling. Everyone watched as it was about to fall on top of Makoto, who, excited, grabbed her katana still with the sheath on. Makoto. No. Hitting the diaper. Makoto hit the diaper using her katana as a baseball bat and the diaper again headed to someone else. Hestia. How disgusting. How disgusting. Crouching. The diaper went over Hestia and Lily, who had seen the whole situation, grabbed a shield that was there with the emblem of the Hestia family. Surprisingly, the diaper bounced and fell on Welf. Splash. Everyone looked silently at Welf, who was about to stand up from the floor before the diaper fell on his head and Welf was in shock. Welf. I'm sorry, it was just a joke, nervous. Welf didn't answer. Everyone thought he was furious if it weren't for what he said. Welf. What did Welf say? Stunned. Welf's head fell to the ground with a thud and he finally fainted. Everyone sighed in relief before Makoto spoke. Makoto. This is your fault, Belle Dono. Pointing at him. Belle. It's Welf's fault, crossing his arms. Lily. Belle-sama, why did you do that? Waving her arms. Hestia. Very bad, Belle-kun, shaking his head. Belle. Me. You never helped me with the baby. And you're my family. Even worse, you, Kami-sama, are the goddess of the hearth and you're not helping me. Raising her arms. Hestia. Well, it's because it's your responsibility and you have to take care of it without help, looking away. Lily. Well, Lily has too many things to do to take care of a baby, looking down. Makoto. I love her very much, but I will never touch that abomination, looking at the diaper. Ball. How direct. Everyone started fighting, completely forgetting about Hermid, who was starting to get annoyed by the excessive noise. And Sayumi. She was very entertained in her crib watching the adults interact, even though her father was only 14. Hermid. Shut up now, whispering. Hermid tried to cover her ears with Belle's jacket, but the noise was simply too much, so annoyed she looked sideways at the four who were making a racket and lazily tried to grab something to throw. Curiously, she grabbed a shield with the Hestia family logo. Hermid looked at it sleepily before looking at the four rowdy ones and aiming. Hermid, you callants. The four stopped eating the fruits and looked perplexed as Hermid, with a terrifying force worthy of an angry woman, threw them at the shield, which was directed at Belle. Belle. Opening eyes. Belle tried to dodge the shield, but not even his agility nor his luck were able to help the rabbit and he received a powerful blow to the head that instantly made him faint. In an incredible act, the shield bounced and this time it hit Hestia in the chest, who rolled her eyes before fainting and falling on top of Belle. The shield bounced again and with more force than before from Hestia's voluptuous breasts and hit Makoto in the head, bouncing off and hitting Lily, who was next to her. Hermid uses the captain's technique equals at super EFFECTIVE. And so we ended up in this situation, finishing the story. Harhime. Oh, Sayumi. Nervous. Belle. Oh. I have no idea how he got there, looking away. Harhime and Belle looked at Sayumi, who gave an innocent smile before snuggling into her mother's arms, hugging the rabbit plushie. Definitely a normal day in the Hestia family. Question. Does anyone know if it's harmful to babies if they go to the beach? Or to a slightly warm place with water? I wanted to make the Danmachi ova too, if anyone knows please tell me. And the lively princess, 08. In general, a day like any other except it was summer so it was a little hot, but that's not the important thing. Let's focus on the white-haired boy who was being cornered in one of the many alleys of Orario City by two Amazons while he was taking his daughter for a walk. L.W. What's wrong? Nervous. Fiona. Why did you cheat on A's? Pointing at him. L. Huh. Confused, trick her with what? Ticking his head. Hein. Don't act like a fool, kid. Grabbing his head, you already had her love, why did you trade her for a Renard? Annoyed. L. Love. Blushing, what are you talking about? Letting go of the grip. Fiona. She loved you, and if you had her love then why did you change her? L. Change her? I never had her love. Sighing, what the hell do you want? Exhausted. Fiona. An explanation. Annoyed, why do you have a daughter? And how? Maybe you and that Renard, in shock. L. Huh. Blushing, wait, don't get ahead of yourself. Waving his hands. Hein. And I thought you wanted to do that with A's, but it seems you like beast men better, huh? Sighing with disappointment. L remained silent and looked away as an image of a beautiful Harhime giving him a charming smile came to his head. Fiona. You didn't deny it. Shaking it. LG Gamenisai, dizzy. After an exhaustive interrogation, Tiona looked at Belle with difficult expressions. L. You don't believe me? Fiona. It's not like that Argonaut-kun, it's just that. Hein. You surprised us, looking at him. Fiona. Yes, so you don't have a relationship with the Renard? Looking at him with a sparkle in her eyes. L. I'm not sure, lowering his head. Ambaze. L. Look, I love A's, or at least I loved her, she was my reason for being so strong literally, but since I met her, looking at Sayumi. Sayumi ba, extending her arms to her father. L. I've gotten closer to Harhime, smiling at Sayumi, I know she loves me too, looking away blushing, but I'm still confused about all this, I recently decided to leave my feelings for A's, because I think it's the best for Sayumi, looking at the Amazon twins, I don't know if what I feel for Harhime is love, and I don't know if I don't feel love for A's anymore, but right now my priority is Sayumi, even above A's or Harhime, serious. Fiona. I want to hit you, you know, smiling. Hein. We have no shortage of desire, looking at him expressionlessly. L. P. Sorry. Fiona. So you're saying there's nothing between you and that Renard? Doubtful. L. W. Well we had a date, blushing. Hein. Anything else? L. A kiss, blushing. Hein. Damn. Shaking him. Fiona. Argonaut-kun is a womanizer, fake crying. L. Hey. Fiona. You have to make it up to A's. Pointing at it. L.A. Hein. You're right, nodding. L. Hein. You can't refuse, crossing her arms. L. So, sighing, what do you want me to do? Should I buy you a Jag American or something? Raising an eyebrow. Fiona. Do you think it's a dog? L. See you later. In both of their minds. L. Tyne Chibis held a Jag American in their hand and threw it far, far away. Just before he hit the ground he was caught by. Behind. By A's chibi which began to eat it in an adorable way with its cheeks puffed out as if it were an adorable squirrel. End of dream. Fiona hit Tyan and Belle who had silly smiles and closed eyes while dreaming about A's chibi. L. Okay, what do you want me to do? Looking at them. Tyan. Go on a date with her. Pointing at it. LH B but, nervous. Fiona. You have no choice, it's your fault that A's has been very sad lately, and if you had cleared up the misunderstanding that she really is your daughter, then this problem would never have started, crossing arms. L. I understand but you must also understand that I can't tell this to all of Orario, and I'm Droplet, just promise not to say anything, I won't allow you to take Sayumi away from me, sharp look. Fiona and Tiona gave a small shiver and nodded immediately, they may be stronger than Belle, but it is never a good idea to face an angry father or mother, even worse, if they protect their children. L. Well, when will it be? Calming down. Hein. Yeah, it's Thursday so, how about tomorrow at noon, smiling. Fiona. And make sure you come well dressed, smiling. L. Huh. But it's hot. Fiona. Really? Looking at herself like that I hardly ever wear clothes so I'm not hot and I'm drop, that's bad. Hein. No, that's perfect. How about you and A's have a picnic, smiling, in summer clothes? Obviously, in Love Square, there's a big park where couples hang out, smiling. L. It's okay, unsure, but there's a problem, looking at them. Hein. Now that, annoyed. L. The baby. Both. Fiona. you can't leave her with a renard, tilting her head. Belle. First of all her name is Harhime, serious, second no, lowering his head, she said she would go to something called spa, with Kami-sama, Lily and Makoto-san, so tomorrow I will be in charge of the baby, looking at them. Hein. Curse, frustrated. Fiona. Why don't you take her on the date, smiling stupidly. Hein. Damn you silly. Fiona. Hey. Don't pull my ears. Belle. And I'm Droplet, well, that's fine by me, but what about Ace-san? Raising an eyebrow, if she doesn't let me go with Sayumi, I won't go, looking at them. Hein. I don't know whether to congratulate you for being a good father or hit you for exactly that, sighing. Belle. I think the answer is obvious, and I'm Droplet. Fiona. Okay. Don't worry, we'll talk to Ace and you'll have your date, smiling or happy. Belle. Since. Belle. Are you angry? Nervous? Harhime hum. Looking away, no. Belle. Sweating bullets, calm down, it will just be like a friend's outing, scratching the back of his neck. Harhime. Even if it's just that, don't you think going out with a pretty girl after going on a D-date with another woman is womanizing? Looking away. Belle. Well, if you put it that way, it's true, thinking. Look, I promise we won't do anything besides walk around and eat, okay? If I break my promise, you can do whatever you want to me, smiling. Harhime. What did you wish for? Blushing. Belle. Blushing too, why yeah, whatever, looking away. Harhime. Muo, pouting, it's okay, you better not do anything else, pulling her cheek. Belleshte bien, smiling nervously. While Harhime and Belle were talking, Sayumi laughed amused by the funny face Belle made while Harhime pulled her cheek. Harhime. After this, we better have a picnic too, smiling. Belle. Haha, I promise, smiling. Harhime. Belle, blushing. Belle. What pa? Harhime. Abrazo, abbracando a Belle. Belle blushed hard before reciprocating the hug with affection and then. Harhime took Sayumi in her arms before walking down the hall calmly, or so it seemed since Sayumi looked amused as her mother's face was bright red from the kiss she gave Belle, that was the second she had given Belle and the second kiss she had ever given in her life. As she left she was watched by a smiling Belle until Harhime closed the door. Belle slumped onto the sofa before letting out a sigh of love. Belle Cranel was certainly very lucky. It was already daylight in the morning, at the bars of the aforementioned fireplace were all the employees of this small family preparing to do their respective things. Welf was preparing his backpack and tools, since he would go with Hephaestus, supposedly to learn more about blacksmithing, although it was obvious that he would try to flirt with her. And the other girls were talking quietly among themselves before going to their spa, although like Welf, they looked sideways at the couple's interaction. Harhime. Take care of Sayumi, staring at him. Hi. Like a little soldier. Harhime. Don't do anything reckless and don't flirt with anyone. Pouting. Belle. You look very pretty, so you know, smiling. Harhime. Smiles. Belle. Ha, laughing. Harhime moo don't laugh, hugging Belle. Belle sorry, smiling. Harhime smiled before giving Sayumi a kiss on the head who was in Belle's arms. Sayumi smiled at her mother's action and extended her little hands. Harhime. See you soon my little one, smiling. Belle. Okay, then I'm leaving. Take care, waving goodbye. Everyone smiled at Belle and waved goodbye to him, everyone gave him kind smiles, just like Harhime who after a while looking in the direction where her lover and her daughter had gone returned with the girls. Harhime are come back, smiling shyly. Hestia. For God's sake, how do you do that? Raising an eyebrow. Harhime. I don't know what Hestia-sama is talking about, confused. Lily. It refers to how your attitude changes, when Belle-sama is with you you are more confident and firm, and whenever she leaves you go back to being like before, shy and insecure, looking at her. Harhime. Really? Embarrassed, I hadn't noticed, looking away. Makoto. That doesn't matter now. Smiling, let's go to the spa. Smiling happily. Girls hi. And Welf. The ever-ardent Welf had already left with false hopes. With our lucky rabbit. Belle was walking through the streets of Orario carrying Sayumi with an arm, he was wearing red shorts and a white short-sleeved shirt, in addition to that instead of his typical boots he had red sandals. More than a casual day it seemed that Belle was going to the beach and she really wasn't lacking in desire, but leaving this aside, how was she dressed, my dear daughter? Well. Sayumi had a white romper with bunny prints and a white beastman hat that left her ears free, undoubtedly adorable. While Belle was walking, Sayumi snuggled up to his chest and fell asleep peacefully without worrying about anything. After all, she was with her father and her father would never let anything happen to her. Belle continued walking calmly before reaching the district of love belonging mostly to the Aphrodite family. Many women barely saw him and sighed as if in love, some had blood coming out of their noses. Belle was not exactly muscular, but he was not a noodle either, both escaping and facing death had given him an athletic and exciting body for women. Harhime was undoubtedly lucky. As Belle walked he smiled nervously as he saw that many women were approaching and looking at the baby, as well as giving compliments. Some were there to flirt with him, and some others just wanted to see the little girl and maybe talk to him. After a while Belle was finally able to get out of that horde of women and walk towards his original destination, a large fountain like the one in front of the guild, only this one had a statue of Aphrodite that was throwing water. The curious thing about this fountain is that it was right in front of a Jag-American stall, curious indeed. Belle looked for the person with whom he would have his friends night and blushed. There sitting on the edge of the fountain was a beautiful girl with long, straight golden hair. She was wearing a dress she had never seen in her life. On the right side of her head, she had a purple bow in her hair. In addition to her white sleeveless shirt, she had a purple skirt, long white stockings and purple shoes. She had a paper bag full of Jag-American while eating one that was in her hand. Beautiful without a doubt, Belle couldn't contain his blush when he saw Ace dressed in such a way while eating a Jag-American. In addition to that, around Ace, there was an aura of flowers and calm that made Belle even more nervous. Belle swallowed hard and, using all his courage, walked steadily towards his friend's outing. With Ace, the beautiful golden-haired swordswoman eagerly awaited the person who would be her date, the one she proclaimed several nights ago as her bunny, Belle Cranel. After much persuasion, she finally emerged from her room at night, all disheveled and with red eyes, while giving everyone an indifferent look. Fiona and Tyne were at the door, along with Riveria and Lefiya, who already knew about the situation. Ace did not let them pass, no matter how hard they tried until Fiona dropped the bomb. Last night. Fiona. Argonaut-kun doesn't have a relationship with anyone. Ace, talking about the other side of the door. Ace. What are you talking about? Sharpening his gaze. Fiona. See, calm down, raising her arms. I recently spoke with Argonaut-kun and he told me the truth, smiling. That girl is not his real daughter. He said he adopted her since he found her in an abandoned alley next to the Rita Harhime-san and both took her as their daughter, smiling. But they are nothing yet, you still have a chance. Ace. Happy. They all looked at the door carefully and smiled when they saw that it was beginning to open again, revealing the Princess of the Sword, who had a sparkle in her eyes. Ace and Sirio? Hopeful. Fiona. Yes. But I won't lie to you, I would be. Argonaut-kun said that he doesn't know what he feels for you or for Harhime-san. He doesn't know if he's completely in love with her, nor does he know if he's completely forgotten you. Ace all vision. Surprised. Fiona. Yes, Ace, he said he loved you, smiling, but he never thought you would give him a chance, so he left his feelings and tried to forget you, trying to be serious. Ace. What do I do, nervous. Riveria. First calm down, we already heard that he has mixed feelings for both of them, so you still have a chance, just like the other girl would be, so you have to fight for him, smiling. Tyne. We got you a date with the rabbit, smiling proudly. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock you will have to go to the Love District in casual clothes and you will go to a picnic that we will prepare, smiling. You just go and show me your feelings, smiling kindly. Lefiya, and don't let the Renard bring you down. Ace-san, looking at her, you can do it. Ace high. Motivated, but what do you do at a picnic, shaking, and I don't have casual clothes, nervous. Riveria. A mother is prepared for anything, taking out a suitcase. The girls watched curiously as Riveria opened the suitcase, revealing a white outfit with gold details, a purple bow like some sneakers and a purple skirt among other things. Ace. Riveria, from where? Riveria. I have my secrets, smiling, now encelamps for your date with Belle, smiling. Ace high, smiling. Riveria smiled with relief. Finally, after a few weeks she saw her daughter smile again, just like when she met Belle Cranel. Despite the situation, Riveria was grateful to Belle. Thanks to him, she stopped being that inexpressive princess and began to feel various emotions just like she showed them: love, affection, jealousy, sadness, longing, etc. Without a doubt Riveria was happy, and if everything went well, who knows, Fufu, maybe one day she will see some boys and girls with white hair and golden eyes running around. Tenma. Too bad I don't agree with that 3 I'm pure evil, hahaha. XD. And after a whole night of practicing, Ace was finally ready to proclaim Belle as hers, not in a perverted way obviously, she didn't even know what intercourse was, and according to Riveria, for the moment it was better that she didn't know. Back in the present. Ace was a little impatient while eating a Jag-American and waiting for Belle. She was starting to worry why Belle wouldn't arrive, although it was barely 12 o'clock. Next to Ace she looked at her mini-me who was waiting in the fort in the same way as her, while moving her little legs and hugging a stuffed rabbit. Ace was about to say something to her schizophrenia if it weren't for the fact that she spoke first. Mini Ace. Look. There it is, smiling. Baze turned her gaze at high speed and looked in the direction her mini-me was pointing. She couldn't help but feel a small smile on her lips when she saw him. Those white hairs, as white as fresh snow, her ruby eyes that seemed to shine like the brightest gem, and a kind smile that took away all your worries. Yes, there she was, Belle. Baze stood up in a second, almost dropping his precious Jag-American. Baze caught the bag nervously and comically in the eyes of many. When Aze realized everyone was staring at her from under her blushing head, the first thing she had to do was make a good impression, and she blew it. Aze lowered her head with a depressive aura before a warm hand was placed on her head. Belle. Good morning, Aze-san, smiling. Aze also looked at Belle, blushing. She liked him to caress her head. No, wait. Since when is Belle so bold? Before, he would never have done something like this. On the contrary, she would be the one to do it and Belle would blush like a tomato. Well, it's not like she minds Belle caressing her. Belle laughed nervously as he saw Aze start to purr like a cat while rubbing his head. Suddenly Aze Chibi opened her eyes in white before starting to sweat. She had acted very embarrassing, also the sight, and she was going to blame Belle for the way he made her behave before someone else caught both of their attention. Not. Belle and Aze looked at Sayumi, who was already awake, and glared at Belle, as if she knew she was flirting with someone else besides her mother. Belle? Huh? What's wrong? Nervous? Why are you looking at me like that? And I'm Droplet. When Belle removed his hand from Aze's head, Sayumi returned to her normal look, while Aze made a small pout. Aze? Right, they said she would also bring the baby, looking at Sayumi. Aze, I think she would hate the baby, after all she was the reason why Belle had focused on another girl forgetting her, but to her surprise. Aze? How adorable, pecking her cheek. Aze was instantly enchanted by the little Renard, who had ruby eyes as bright as Belle's. She really looked like her daughter. To make her more adorable were her little tail and Renard ears that looked very fluffy and soft. Aze was tempted to touch them. And Sayumi? She looked at Aze with annoyance because he kept itching her cheek. Belle. He laughs nervously. It came out better than I expected, sweating. Aze. Belle, looking at him. Belle. Hi. Curious. Aze. Let's go. Taking his hand. Belle. Blushing. Belle was pulled by the hand by Aze as they received a glare from Sayumi that almost seemed to say, I'll tell mom. Belle trembled at that but simply sighed and let himself be carried away by an excited Aze who even forgot the Jag-American bag. And? Princess of the Sword. What the hell is the hick here? In the busy streets of Orario, you could see two highly recognized young people walking together, a golden-haired woman and a white-haired man. The white-haired man was carrying a small Renard who looked at all the stands with curiosity and a sparkle in her eyes. Anything to highlight? Yeah, Belle was nervous, right? The very affectionate sword princess who was currently on his right was scorching his arm, accidentally inserting it between her breasts. Belle tried to subtly remove his arm, but Aze didn't allow it and tightened her grip on him, implying that she didn't want him to let go. Belle didn't want to be rude, so he resigned himself and let Aze use his arm while he carried Sayumi with the other. Belle. That's weird and uncomfortable, sweating. Where are we going? Smiling nervously. Aze looked at all the stalls before looking at her hands and noticing that she didn't have her Jag-American bag. She had forgotten them at the fountain. Belle was excited as Aze turned to look at him with wide eyes, as if she were about to cry, and moved her hands making the silhouette of a bag. Belle. Ah. Your Jag-American bag. Looking around, I think you left it at the fountain, remembering. Belle almost fell to the ground when he saw Aze wiping his eyes while pouting. He had lost his sacred food. Belle. Looking around. Oh. Look. A Jag-American stand, smiling. Let's buy you some, I'll treat, taking Aze by the hand. Aze watched silently, but with a small blush on her cheeks, as Belle took her hand before leading her like a little girl to the Jag-American stand and ordering a dozen of them. They both had very similar tastes, so he ordered his favorites, which turned out to be Aze's favorites as well. Belle. Here, smiling. Aze took one of the Jag-American with a blush on her face before eating it adorably while looking away. Aze. Thanks. Belle. Nothing, smiling. Sayumi ba, pointing to the Jag-American. Belle. Don't tell Haru anything, giving me a little piece. Sayumi. Daddy, sighs. Belle. Good girl, rubbing her head. Aze stared at them before bringing her hand closer to Sayumi's head and, like Belle, began to caress her with great care. Sayumi looked at her suspiciously but let her stroke her head. Aze couldn't help but scratch behind Sayumi's ears, who put on a satisfied face while pushing her head towards Aze's hand so that she would continue scratching her ears. Belle. It seems like he's starting to like you, smiling. Aze. Didn't you like it? Depressed. Belle. Huh. Don't get it wrong, she's just very distrustful of women for some reason, usually when she's with me," scratching the back of her neck. "Baze. I see," looking at the little girl, "she looks a lot like you," looking at Belle. "Belle. Haha, they tell me that often," smiling. Baze looked at his Jag American before eating it at high speed, it was delicious. Belle was eating his at a moderate speed until he turned to see Aze and almost choked at the empty bag, while Aze ate his last Jag American like a squirrel. She certainly looked adorable. I looked at my little daughter and looked away while trying to stop myself from getting a nosebleed. She was just like Aze, eating some Jag American I gave her like she was an adorable squirrel. Her ears perked up and her tail swishing from side to side only made her more adorable. Aze and Sayumi tilted their heads as they watched Belle wipe the blood from his nose and then act as if nothing had happened. Belle. "Well, what do you think if we walk around a bit before we go to the picnic?" Smiling. Aze nodded calmly and began to walk next to Belle looking at the streets of Orario, looking for something that would entertain them. "Aze, Belle, look," pointing with his finger. Belle looked where Aze was pointing and his eyes lit up when he saw a diamond, the gem. No, not that kind of diamond, more like a hero's book. Yeah, they're in a bookstore, exactly on a shelf higher than the others, there was a book that stood out from the rest. The Adventures of the Mercenary King. Belle. There it is. With a sparkle in his eyes. Aze. What is that? Confused. Belle. It's the last book of an author of books about heroes, smiling, his identity is anonymous, but he has created and published several books about heroic stories of various characters such as the Argonaut, the Great Gilgamesh, Hercules, etc. They say that the author is an old bearded man who is quite perverted, but these are only rumors, and this is his last book and the most difficult to find, happy. Aze stared at the title of the book without saying anything. It was impossible, right? How could anyone besides her know about the Mercenary King's story? He was her father, and he had died thousands of years ago, so how could anyone know about? Aze was so absorbed in her thoughts that she didn't notice when Belle was already inside the store fighting a child Amazon for the book. List. Aze. Aze turned to see Belle and was surprised to see him with some bumps and scratches on his body while he proudly carried a book in his right hand. Little Sayumi also smiled proudly, as if she had made a great achievement in her short life. Aze. Are you okay? Worried. Belle. Sure, smiling, I managed to settle it with a game of rock, paper, scissors, and I won the book, showing it. Elsewhere you could see a child Amazon being comforted by another Amazon with too much plot. Belle. I did it, smiling with satisfaction. Sayumi patted the book like it was a prize as she celebrated with her father. Aze just looked at them with a small smile on her face, they really looked happy. Belle. Well, how about we go to our picnic now? Smiling. Aze seemed to cheer up about the picnic and nodded furtively before pulling Belle towards a location unknown to him. Belle. I have to admit that it is very beautiful, looking at the place. Belle, Aze and Sayumi were sitting on a picnic blanket located in a park in Orario. An apple tree shaded them so the sun wouldn't shine directly on the three of them. Something else to highlight. The picnic basket Aze was holding. Aze T10, I did it with Riveria's help, embarrassed. Belle and Sayumi looked curiously at the food basket and Belle opened it with curiosity, inside there were sandwiches, cut apples, a bottle full of orange juice and a pie. Aze looked at him nervously, mainly because she needed to make the pie about 15 times before Riveria came to help her, and after another 6 attempts she got this decent pie, but she didn't test its taste, now everything was in the hands of luck. Belle looked at the pie with a drop of sweat running down his forehead, he knew Aze's bad cooking, but unlike before at least now his food looked decent, but he still had his doubts. Belle looked at Aze's hands, which until now he had noticed had band-aids and some damaged bandages to understand that she cut herself with a knife. Belle sighed and praying mentally and asking his goddess to accompany him to the other world, Belle cut a slice of the pie before putting it on a plate and taking a piece neither too big nor too small. Belle. Well, let's try. Belle bit into the pie without hesitation and began to savor it. Belle tastes good, smiling. Aze seemed to deflate like a balloon and sighed with relief when she saw that her pie was edible. The great achievement for Aze Waldstein. Elsewhere. Hestia. Harhime. What are you doing? Confused. Harhime was reading a cookbook that showed the steps to make an apple pie. Harhime. I feel like someone wants to surpass me, squinting. Hestia. Confused. With Belle and Aze. Belle held the plate of pie away from Sayumi, who had her little hand stretched out while pouting adorably. She wanted pie. And Belle didn't let him. Why didn't Belle want another scolding from Hermid, who could spend up to 3 hours giving you a serious lecture about taking care of a baby, and so on? He didn't know how, but somehow she always found out what he was doing. It was a feminine instinct. Surely, it was terrifying to Bell how Harhime or Ermid could tell in a flash if he had done something wrong. An example was when he met the god Hermes on the street and he gave him a familiar red jar. Bell simply sighed at the god's nonsense and put the jar away to throw its contents in a trash can. And when he arrived at the fireplace mansion he was greeted by Harhime with her arms crossed, who gave him an inquisitive look before getting too close to him, and they began to sniff at him. Harhime. You smell like a boar, squinting. L.A. Blinking. Bell had a stupid face on his face as he thought about why Harhime said that and how the hell did a boar smell. Until Harhime put her hand inside his jacket, searching in the hidden pockets, and from there she took out the aphrodisiac that the god Hermes gave her. Bell. Oh, understanding. Harhime. And this? Squinting. Bell. Oh shit, here we go again. Thin Vietnam memories. Bell felt a chill run down his spine as he remembered that night Harhime didn't let him sleep with her and Sayumi, and he ended up sleeping on the floor right in front of Harhime's room door. Why didn't he go to his room? Just because I'm an idiot. Bell shook his head, leaving his thoughts about jealous Harhime aside and focused on the golden-haired girl next to him. Which extended a sandwich for him to bite into. Bell also his shoulders and bit into the sandwich without any problem, enjoying its flavor. It was incredible that Ace made them and they didn't taste bad. And Ace was smiling proudly as she watched Bell enjoy her food. The sandwiches were the only decent thing she could make on her own. Of course it takes hours of work in the kitchen and I end up with a destroyed kitchen and some decent sandwiches. But at least she made edible food and she was proud of that. And while Ace and her mini-me were celebrating, they were seen by Bell and Sayumi Chibis, who were eating the sandwiches. Bell. I guess I should reward, what do you say? Looking at Sayumi. Sayumi bah, looking at him. Bell. Well, I think I know how, thinking, hey Ace. Ace left his celebration for another time and immediately turned to look at Bell in a curious way, although he blushed when Bell patted the blanket right next to him asking him to sit down. Ace obediently went to Bell's side and sat down next to him a bit shyly, but Ace was surprised when Bell calmly held her head and placed it on his lap after leaving Sayumi sitting on the blanket. The next moment Ace's head was as red as a tomato while smoke came out of her head. And Sayumi had a pout on her face as she crawled towards Bell and Ace and tried to separate them. Of course, Sayumi could do little or nothing against a level 3 and a level 6. Bell smiled at Sayumi and began to caress her head affectionately. Sayumi calmed down and enjoyed her father's caresses, while Ace looked at this with a small pout before taking Bell's other hand and placing it on her head. Bell had a drop of sweat and began to caress both of their heads calmly. Both of them were like two little girls in a certain sense, even the swordswoman looked more like a child than a teenager. Without Bell knowing it, somewhere else was a beautiful Renard bigger than Sayumi who was pouting and grumbling. Harhime. I feel jealous, you'll see when I get home, pout. At the picnic, Bell for some reason felt a chill and swallowed hard. Things were going to go badly for him at home, his instincts told him that. Bell sighed and then turned his gaze towards a peculiar scene. Ace was training right in front of him and Sayumi was using a tree branch as a rapier. Sayumi looked at her with a sparkle in her eyes. For her it was an incredible sight. Well, for Bell too, seeing a first-class train was one of the most amazing things in the world. And right now Bell and Sayumi watched with shining eyes as Ace swung the sword beautifully. It almost seemed to dance with the wind. Those movements were worthy of a swordsman like her. Bell. Hey Ace, getting up. Ace stopped swinging the branch before looking at Bell closely. Of course she didn't expect him to be right in front of her with a wooden branch about half the size of hers. Bell. Let's have a sparring session, what do you think? It's been a while since we've had that, smiling. Ace seemed to hesitate as she looked at their weapons. They literally only had two wooden branches that could break at any second if they made a powerful attack. Bell. I know what you're thinking, but it'll be interesting, don't you think? We'll just reduce our strength enough so they don't break. You can do that, right? Smiling. Ace looked at him with fire in her eyes. For some reason she seemed motivated, and from one second to the next, she had already launched herself towards Bell, with the branch extended like a rapier, ready to give a strong blow to Bell's stomach. Bell counterattacked and with a single attack, deflected Ace's thrust to the right, letting it pass by him. Of course Ace saw something like this coming and kicked high towards Bell's head. Bell opened his eyes, not because of the kick, but because of the pure white panties that Ace showed under her dress, leaving him in shock. Bell was like that for a few seconds before realizing his mistake and seeing Ace's kick about to hit him. Bell. Meyer. Punch. Bell. Bell slowly opened his eyes to find a golden-haired girl staring at him. Bell immediately knew what happened. This had happened several times in the past when he trained with Ace. She was giving him a lap pillow. What? What? Bell looked down slightly, noticing that Sayumi was sitting on his stomach playing with her stuffed rabbit. Bell. How long did I sleep? Looking at Ace. Baze continued to look at him calmly before answering. Baze. 30 minutes, stroking her head. L. Did anything interesting happen while I was asleep? Looking at her. Baze. Sayumi filled the diaper. L. Oh. Now I see why it smells a little bad, sighing, we've already finished the food, right? Baze hi, smiling a little. L. Well, it was delicious, now let's go home, I have to change. Sayumi, getting up and carrying Sayumi. Baze nodded and also stood up before starting to pick everything up with Belle. Baze. You don't need to help me, looking at him. L. Don't worry, I'd feel bad if I let you do everything, at least let me help you with this, smiling. Baze blushed a little at Belle's smile before nodding foolishly, unable to deny Belle. Baze. Are you sure I can come in? Nervous. Belle. Huh. Of course, I invited you to my home, right? Smiling, come in, opening the door, even. Baze. Excuse me. Belle. Come on, don't be shy, rubbing her head, okay you can go to the living room and wait for me there, I'll go change. Sayumi, going to her room. Baze nodded and turned around to start walking to the living room, but there was a problem. Baze Belle, where is the saw she left? I guess I'll look for her myself. Baze began to walk through the long corridors of the fireplace mansion looking for the room, but it was more than obvious that she was lost. Belle. Ready, smiling. Sayumi was sitting on Belle's bed next to the aforementioned, she was already clean and changed, so there was nothing to worry about, now she just had to go with A's. Belle. Okay, let's go, smiling. Sayumi father. Raising arms. Belle carried Sayumi in his arms and left the room to go to the living room, he hoped to find A's. But he didn't see anyone there. Belle A's. Confused, where is she? I told her to wait and oh, she's never been here, so maybe she got lost. How silly, hitting his head, let's go find her, smiling. Sayumi mmm. Pointing. Bella. Belle looked at the place where Sayumi was pointing, the window, Belle approached it and looked with a drop of sweat at the scene in front of him. There in the yard was A's lying on the ground in the fetal position and with a dark look. After running at full speed through the mansion in search of Belle or the living room, I ended up lost several times and somehow ended up in the courtyard of the mansion fireplace. Of course not. She didn't want to get lost in the gigantic mansion again, so she stayed in the fetal position waiting for Belle to find her. And that's how I ended up in that situation. Belle laughed a little amused by A's situation and left the mansion to go get her. Now the three of them were in the living room, although Ace was pouting while looking annoyed at Belle, who was sitting on the couch in front of her laughing silently. It didn't help that Sayumi was also laughing, although Ace didn't know that Sayumi was laughing because Belle had infected her with laughter and not because of anything else. Belle. Well, it was a fun day, let's do it again. Ace, smiling. Ace looked at him with a small smile and nodded. It was an entertaining day for her, mainly because she was with Belle for most of the day and also with Sayumi, she had to admit, she liked the little girl. Ace. Right, I have to go to the Twilight Mansion, sad. Belle. Don't worry, you get out of here, turn right, go straight ahead, turn left, keep going, and you'll find the exit, smiling. Ace. Left, right huh? Confused. Belle. Oh, I can just accompany you, laughing nervously. Belle got up from the sofa next to Ace and accompanied her to the exit of the mansion, of course, not before leaving Sayumi in her crib, letting her rest. When they were right in front of the door, Belle was about to wave goodbye to Ace if it weren't for the fact that she had suddenly hugged him. Belle. Ace. Surprised. Ace. Thank you for accepting today's picnic, smiling. Belle. And don't thank me, blushing. Ace laughed a little and just as she was about to separate herself from the hug the door opened. We arrived. Belle and Ace were petrified by the voice of the goddess Hestia, who was now right in front of them. Hestia looked at them silently before slowly going to hide. Lily, who was behind her, also saw the scene and followed her. She didn't want to be in the middle of a war field. Makoto almost seemed to have her soul leap out and ran off to hide. Belle at the paw. What's going on here now? Belle felt a strong chill run through his body and slowly turned to look at the person who said that, terrifying him even more. There right in the entrance was Harhime smiling sweetly, a smile that didn't match the sinister and demonic aura that was around her. Harhime. Princess of the Sword, can you explain to me what you're doing on top of my man? Ticking her head with her sweet smile. Belle quick. Think of something, if I explain everything maybe no one will get hurt. Bazel he is mine, would be. Baze released Belle and stood in front of him with her arms crossed. Well, Belle looked at her with her mouth open and Harhime narrowed her eyes. Belle. It's our time, mentally sighing. And? What cap was it? Yeah, 10. The situation was, in simple words, problematic. Reason? Simple, the two adventurers staring at each other created a great deal of pressure for everyone else who was there besides them. And unfortunately for our rabbit, he was right in the middle of both of them, feeling that overwhelming pressure. Bell was praying to the gods and all the divinities he knew to help him or improve his luck so that no one would get hurt. And as if a generous god had heard her prayers, Harhime appeared at the entrance. Carrying Sayumi. Aes and Harhime barely saw the little girl and stopped doing that incredible pressure, making Bell sigh in relief. Harhime. I don't know what's going on and I'm not interested, but does anyone know where her daddy is? Raising an eyebrow. Bell. Oh, I know. Quickly going with her, let me show you where, carrying Sayumi, we'll be back in a moment, smiling nervously, I'm not running away, it's just a strategic retreat. Harhime just waved goodbye and followed Bell, who started talking to Sayumi, although she couldn't understand him, but she still laughed at her father's scared face. Harhime. It's better not to ask, expressionless. As soon as the three of them left, more specifically Sayumi, both adventurers once again looked at each other with what would be described as pure hatred. Harhime. So, Sword Princess, how do we fix this matter? Fake smile. Aes. Looking at her seriously. Hestia. Was it a good idea to leave the two of you alone? Sitting with her hands on her head. L. Not at all, but it would have been worse if we had gotten involved, playing with Sayumi. Makoto. Maybe we should stop them in case they fight. L. I don't think they'll go that far, scratching his neck nervously. Lily. Is Bell-sama so naive? Looking. L. Yes, lowering his head. Harhime. Does anyone want tea? Appearing out of nowhere. Everyone. Me, raising my hand. All the members of the Hestia family were enjoying a rather peaceful little tea and biscuit gathering, elsewhere it was pure chaos. The walls had scratches and sword marks. Furniture, vases, and even paintings that Hestia had bought to make the place not look so ugly and lonely, all of that was lying on the floor broken and in pieces. And right in the middle of all the chaos was a golden-haired girl using a guild sword to try to impale a blonde Renard who surprisingly dodged the attacks with great difficulty. You're probably wondering how the hell Harhime was able to dodge all of his attacks. Well, that's due to two things. Number 1. Aes is an incredible swordswoman when it comes to killing monsters. Otter himself thought that Aes's technique was better than his against monsters. But when it came to people capable of thinking, creating techniques and moving in a completely different way than a monster, then Aes was incredibly vulnerable, not to an exaggerated level, after all a level 3 Bell could barely put up a fight. But to the surprise of Aes and Harhime herself, she turned out to be more agile and faster than Bell when it came to evading attacks. Of course, to evade them she had to be completely focused on it, and for that reason she couldn't attack Aes, because if she did, she wouldn't be able to dodge the swordswoman's next attack. Aes just narrowed her eyes as she increased the speed of her slashes and stabs, some of which managed to scratch and make small cuts on Harhime. Well, with the others. Hestia. I think we should go see what they're doing, drinking tea. Crash. Makoto. I think it's not a good idea, pressed against the door. Everyone. Looking at her in surprise. Makoto. What? Raising an eyebrow. Welf. If the suicidal person says so, then it really is something bad, worried. Lily. Here we have medium quality healing potions, taking out green potions, and we have the best healer with us, pointing to Harhime. Harhime. I feel like they see me as a medicine cabinet with legs, sighing. All. Looking away. Harhime. I knew it, depressive aura. Boom. Hestia. I think we should intervene now, standing up. The members of the Hestia family were staring with bated eyes at one of the hallways of the fireplace mansion which was completely destroyed. In the center were two usually quiet girls having what would be considered a fight to the death. To the surprise of many, Harhime was dodging Aes's attacks in a completely abnormal way considering her level 1. But you could see from afar how difficult it was for Renard to dodge the attacks, and every second she was more and more fatigued, so much so that Aes's quick attacks were starting to graze her and make small cuts. After a few seconds, Harhime couldn't stand it anymore, and before Aes impaled Harhime with her sword right in her stomach, she was surprised when a great force stopped her, but not only that, but from all the hands that were holding her to stop her. When he looked around, that's when he realized what had happened. The red-haired blacksmith behind her with one arm around her neck and the other squeezing her right arm, the samurai from the Far East holding her right hand tightly which had the guild sword that was fractured after that rain of attacks she made, the small Palom and Hestia were making an effort to hold her legs, and even Harhime was holding her other arm tightly. But what surprised her the most and made her heart tremble was Bell. He was standing right in front of her, feeling no fear of the sword that was a few inches from his chest, tightly holding a black knife which was aimed at her. Aes never expected to see that, in fact she never believed that this would happen, although she and Bell had already fought it was always as training, Bell had never attacked with the intention of harming her. That's why it took her by surprise to see Bell with the coldest look he'd ever given her, pointing his black knife directly at her neck. His defensive stance let her know that he was ready to block an attack from her and then return it if she moved even a centimeter. They lasted like this for a few minutes full of silence in which Ace and Belle stared at each other hard in the eyes. Shortly after, Ace lowered his head submissively, as if he had lost the staring duel and lowered his sword slowly, trying not to make a sudden movement. The members of the Hestia Familia and Ermid sighed inwardly, they didn't think they could hold on to Ace for another second, her strength was terrifying, and they were only level 1s and a level 2 healer against a newly level 6, they let go of Ace and stood behind Belle, who also relaxed his posture and slowly put away his black knife. Everyone stopped looking at Ace when Harhime collapsed on the floor with a dull sound, completely exhausted, she had surpassed her limits, literally. Everyone quickly approached to help her, but they let Belle hold her and Mara in her arms, while Ermid quickly instilled her with her hand shining in mana. She told them that she was just extremely exhausted after having dodged all those attacks at a speed she wasn't used to, and that she would probably have strong body aches when she woke up. Everyone left there paying close attention to Harhime being carried by Belle in his arms, their attention on the beautiful blonde-haired Renard was so much that they forgot one thing, more exactly the golden-haired swordswoman who was still in the hallway, motionless and with her head down barely holding the sword in her right hand. Her grip on it was so weak that after a few seconds the sword simply fell to the floor, making a small metal sound that no one paid attention to. The swordswoman's still conflicted eyes slowly watched as the back of that white-haired boy moved further and further away from her, carrying in his arms the girl who she knew had stolen the attention of the man she loved. And her once lively eyes lost that little sparkle and stared into space, not knowing what to do now, like a doll, she just stood there waiting for someone else to pull her strings. In the Hestia family meeting room, all the current members were sitting on the sofas or simply standing, trying to entertain themselves with anything or talking among themselves, they were trying to lighten the tense atmosphere. But that tense atmosphere was easily broken when Ermid took little Sayumi from the crib and brought her to her parents, who were in a slightly larger armchair, with Belle taking care of Harhime, giving her a lap pillow, letting her rest. In some strange way Harhime opened her eyes when she felt a familiar lump lie down on her, and her beautiful green eyes looked into the ruby eyes of Sayumi and Belle, who looked worried. Harhime gave a small smile as a light blush spread across her cheeks as she felt Belle's hand caressing her head, it felt strangely good, it was a warm feeling, and she didn't want it to go away, and to make everything better, she had her little girl clinging to her lovingly, simply one of Harhime's best days, leaving aside her intense fight with Ace. While Harhime smiled at her daughter and her man Ermid looked at her perplexed, according to her professional opinion as a doctor, Harhime should not have woken up at least until the next morning with great muscle pain, and here she was wide awake moving her arm to hug her daughter. Ermid did not look for answers and simply concluded it as a mother's love, what other explanation could there be? I'm sorry for leaving you there with her, I should have stayed and stopped everything instead of running away, lowering his head. Harhime looked at him for a second and simply gave him a smile, as if she accepted his apology, of course, that still didn't leave her with a small pinch on her cheek. Harhime. I forgive you if you promise never to go on a date with a girl again or girls, looking at him expressionlessly. Why yes, lowering his head submissively. Hestia. Sometimes I find it hard to know who wears the pants in the relationship, looking at the whole interaction. Lily. We'll find out in time. Well asleep on the couch. A day had passed since that, everyone had fallen asleep in the living room like a kind of sleepover, although Ermid stayed there mostly to keep an eye on Harhime's condition, she knew that later she would get a scolding from her god for not having been at the pharmacy almost the whole day, but it was her day off again, and anyway, she just had to make her god uncomfortable by staring at him blankly to make him nervous enough for him to stop complaining and leave. The awakening of everyone was curious in simple words. Hestia was on her futon gift from the family suit, sleeping peacefully with one foot out of the futon and almost completely uncovered. Lily was sitting in a chair with only a blanket and using her hands as a pillow. Somehow or another she made the chair look incredibly comfortable. Welf was on the couch without even being covered, even sleeping in the same position as yesterday. Belle and Harhime were the same. Except why Harhime had a blanket covering her and Sayumi, while Belle slept without a blanket, even giving her a lap pillow. Ermid was sitting on a sofa for one person sleeping peacefully with her hands together and a small blanket covering her. And somehow that nobody understood, Makoto was on top of a large wooden piece of furniture, sleeping while hugging her sword, saying weird things about take Mikasuchi, and etc. Or at least that's what Aisha had told them when she arrived this morning and woke up with Makoto on her right shoulder like she took out potatoes. How cold it is, shivering. Harhime. Come here, covering the three with the blanket. Harhime leaned on Belle's chest while Sayumi snuggled up to both of them and went back to sleep. Belle and Harhime smiled at each other before Aisha interrupted their moment. Aisha. I'm sorry to interrupt your couple moment, but weren't we supposed to have a little expedition today? Looking curiously at Belle. Belle. Huh. Perplexed, oh right, I'd forgotten we were going to the 18th floor today, suggesting his chin, don't you want to stay here and enjoy a cup of hot chocolate and postpone that for tomorrow? Smiling nervously. Aisha. You don't want to separate from Harhime, right? Belle. No, lowering his head. Aisha. Never mind, the offer of hot chocolate on this cold morning is tempting, sitting on the floor. Belle good. Aisha. I'm going to have to do it myself, right? Sighing. Belle. Yes, hugging Harhime, I definitely won't move from here, resting his head against Harhime's. Aisha. On the next expedition I will not share my earnings, reluctantly walking to the kitchen. Belle hi, playing it down. Are you still waiting for A's? Tiona. Tiona A. Turning her head, oh, hello Riveria, smiling tiredly. Riveria. You've been here all day, why aren't you going to sleep? Even Lefiya went to sleep a few hours ago, covering her with a blanket. Tiona A's hasn't arrived, looking at the entrance. Riveria. Maybe he stayed overnight in the fireplace mansion, placing his hand on Tiona's shoulder. Tiona. Maybe, even so, I'll wait for him to arrive, it's already dawn, so it shouldn't take long for him to come for his sword and go to the dungeon, yawning. Riveria. Okay, make sure you don't catch a cold, leaving. Leonisha, I haven't had a cold in years, covering herself with the blanket, I don't think I'll get one now. I wonder if A slept well. Elsewhere. Aisha. By the way, what the hell happened to the blonde doll in the entrance hall? Curious. Everyone. Huh. Blinking. End. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching, if you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day, bye.